All right, welcome everybody to day 2 of the Foundations set review here. We are doing all the rares and mythics and the special guests today, 10 special guests like they usually have. We'll cover those at the end. We are also going to kind of talk a little bit about each color pair, just as we talk about the gold cards, which we will be starting with. We didn't do as much of that as we usually do with the commons and uncommons. We tend to give a little bit of a cursory, some predictions of how we think the color pairs are going to play out. Maybe some of the stronger ones, some of the weaker ones. And yeah, we're going to just give some thoughts on those as we go through the cards here. Mark, well, welcome back, number 1. Number 2, anything you want to say before we dive into the rares and mythics?
Well, I will again say, thanks for having me.
Of
I'm glad
course.
we could make it work. I am feeling a little bit better recovering from my cold, so hopefully able to power through this today. My throat feels fine. I got a huge jug of water,
Good to hear.
and I'm recovering just in time because I got some important stuff happening this week that I think I talked to you about. We'll maybe remain cryptic on that.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
yeah,
Some cool magic
it's gonna get
things. Yeah.
some cool magic stuff for me this
Yeah.
week for sure. On top of the set review. So I know a lot of the times you talk about the words we say are kind of more important than the grades, and I do find a lot of pride in kind of preparing people for some of the more advanced nuances of the format. So we'll try and do a little bit of that today, but we're still going to keep it relatively brief, seeing as it's a fairly simple format.
Yeah, for sure. And just like yesterday, we're going to be using the limited resources A to F letter grading system. And I think we just, with that, just jump right into our first card, which is Kakar Zephyr Awakened. So, like I said, going to start with the gold cards here. This is 2 white blue for a 3/4 legendary creature bird wizard at rare. So 4 mana, 3/4 flyer. And it has a line of text that says, when you cast a non-creature spell, choose one. Either exile another target creature you control, and then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step, or make a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying.
Yeah, so like if you open this in your pick one, pack one, it's good, but I can imagine there's some uncommons you would take over this. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
the fact that it doesn't protect itself is kind of annoying, and it's not like that well statted, so you have to make like a couple of spirits to really get a rare's worth of card out of here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think if you make one, you're fairly happy. Like a 4 mana 3/4/5 makes a 1/1 spirit, that's good. And the problem there, of course, is just like you have to untap with it, which isn't always the easiest thing for a 4 mana, no ETB, no protection kind of spell to be happy with that exchange. What do you think of the first ability there? How often do you think you're gonna choose to do that rather than just make a spirit? Which I kind of, as I'm kind of reading that as the default mode.
Yeah, you mean the spirit's the default mode,
Sorry,
right?
yeah, spirit's the default mode, the blinking mode. How often do you foresee doing that?
Yeah, so if this could protect itself, you'd see it coming up a lot more because
Mm-hmm.
like basically it'd be super hard to kill. You could like there's a single blue and a single white common instance that can trigger this right away. So if you do want to hold it till turn 5, you can get your value instantly. So it's really just going to depend on the board. Like, are you getting more than a 1/1 spirit's worth of value? And if you blink your, cat companion, whatever that draws you a card, it's probably going to be better. So I expect most of the time you'll make a spirit, but not by no means it'll be like 90 to 100%. And maybe 60, 70, 80%, something like that.
Yeah, for sure. And it is also just like a slight bit of tension probably with the fact that if you are like a blue-white flyer deck, which is kind of what the archetype or the color pair wants you to do, well, that's something that incentivizes a lot of creatures, and this is a card that incentivizes a handful of non-creatures, so, some slight tension there. Overall, I think a solid card, but not a super exciting one. I would give Kakar like a B minus, maybe even a C plus. I'm gonna go with the optimistic B minus, but I could see that being a little too high.
Yeah, I like B minus. Blue white looks okay to me, but I don't think it's gonna be one of the best or one of the worst decks. So yeah, B minus for Kakar.
Yeah, for sure. I think that I am actually probably a little bit lower, getting to just talking about the color pairs here. I think I might be a little bit lower in blue white, just as, the core packages like we were talking about yesterday, what these colors are doing. Like white's doing the token thing, blue's doing like the instant speed spell thing. And neither of those really touch on like its actual theme of flying. So I don't know. I feel like it might come together. I can see this playing out a little bit more than not, like the blue-white deck in Bloomborough. That just kind of didn't do that much.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, there's like the top commons for each color don't really gel together that
Yeah.
well. Like you're not enabling, your Tolarian Terrors with your white cards, and you're not really benefiting from going wide with your blue cards. So yeah, maybe you're right about that.
Yeah. I can see it being a little bit better as well. But yeah, we will see. We're gonna move on to the next one here, Consuming Aberration. This is another Gate Crash reprint. So this is 3 blue black for a XX, or sorry, star star. So that means it's mutable. It changes based on certain conditions, and it's a rare. Consuming Aberration's power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in your opponent's graveyards, and whenever you cast the spell, each opponent reveals the top card of their library until they reveal a land card. Put those cards into their graveyard. So everything they revealed, plus the land. Really can get out of hand, can get massive, can mill them out. How good was this card back in Gate Crash Limited, actually? I'm just, quick aside here, just to kind of give a bit of some context of this card was good maybe 15 years ago, but things have changed, of course. What was this, like a bomb? Was this just like a solid card?
It was good. Blue
Yeah.
black was the worst of the 5 guilds in that set. Like the set was really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Boros could kill like really quickly. Gruul could kill really quickly. Dimir was kind of based around having Denrova horrors at uncommon. So I mean, we're kind of getting a bit off track here, but
Yeah,
it
for
was
sure.
pretty good.
Yeah, and I think it's still pretty good. Like, it does have the no ETB, no protection, expensive card problem, but it also, like, sort of has a little bit of protection in that when you play it, late-ish in the game, turn 6, turn 7, it's going to be pretty big often. Especially if you can, like, play it and then cast a spell, grow it by, 2 or 3 cards immediately. So it does have the protection of just not dying to, like, bite spells, burn spells a lot of the time. Of course, any of the white removal, the black removal is going to still do you in. But it is something that I'm willing to entertain, even though it doesn't have any of those things I like from my expensive creatures.
Yeah, I think the bar is high enough for modern limited that I'm not going to grade this super high. I was
Yeah.
thinking I'd give it like a C.
Yeah, I was gonna give it a C plus. I think that sounds about right. Like if it sticks, it's gonna be great, and if it doesn't, well, whatever. You lose out a little bit on tempo most likely. So yeah, I'll go C plus in Consuming Aberration. But what do you think about blue black? Blue black's actually one of the ones that I think it's unlike blue white, where I think it's common packages don't play all that well together. I think just like the good black removal, which we saw, 2 really good ones at common, plus the blue instant package. I think that plays pretty well together.
Yeah, blue black is probably the deck I'm most looking forward to playing,
Mm-hmm.
and I wouldn't be surprised if it has better top player stats than the general population, because it's a lot of like surveilling and looting and kind of like sculpting your game state to a certain position. So
Yep.
there's a lot of dancing you got to do around that. There is some incidental hate for the graveyard that we've seen
Mm-hmm.
yesterday at common and uncommon. I don't know how much those cards will be played that will affect this, but I think blue black's going to be maybe not like the best deck, but I think it's going to be my favorite deck to draft.
Yeah, I have reasonably high hopes, kind of the same lines as you're saying. I think that the early days will probably be less kind to it than, what we see in week 3 or 4. But yeah, I also like me a good blue-black deck, so here's hoping. All right, next up we've got Alesha, who laughs at fate. This is the red-black rare. It's 1 black-red for a 2/2 first strike legendary creature at rare. Whenever Alesha attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and it's got the raid trigger of, at the beginning of your end step, if you attack this turn, return target creature with mana value less than or equal to Alesha's power from your graveyard to the battlefield. Okay.
Yeah, so this thing can be pretty nasty with Burglar Rat, right? Like if
Oh,
you
yeah.
just attack on turn 3 and they block it, you just play this post combat and then instantly get your Burglar Rat back.
Yeah,
And
that's pretty
like,
nice.
and that's assuming it doesn't trade, right? Like if you trade with your 2-drop, you can also get back your 2-drop and basically kill a creature for free. I kind of like Alesha here. It does still die to the stab and
Yeah.
the burst lightning we talked about, but there's enough here that I'm willing to take that risk.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it also just snowballs, like, where we're say that you're lucky enough that your opponent doesn't have one of those 1 mana removal spells that kills this. It snowballs really, really well. Just like, if they can't block it the first time, then they're gonna have a hard time blocking it the next time, and the next time, and of course, in the process, you get to attack with your other things with somewhat of impunities because you're gonna bring the back with if you attack with Lesha, or sorry, just attack with Lesha on board. So yeah, it's pretty solid. I think I like it a little bit more than the cards that we've seen so far. I think I'd give Alesha a B minus.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
Yeah.
And red black, we talked a little bit yesterday about how it's maybe less of a raid deck and more of a steal and sack deck.
Mhm.
But if you're stealing and sacrificing things, chances are you probably are still going to have attacks. So
Yeah.
like you'll still be able to enable raid, and I don't think it'll be too difficult to turn this on.
Yeah, totally. And I think red black seems like one of the more synergistic color pairs. Like red and black are kind of doing their own thing independently. Just like red being very aggressive, black having a sacrifice theme that some will play well together. But yeah, that steal and sack theme with the active trees and common involuntary employment, I think it's called, like that. That's a really big deal. So looking forward to that. I think it looks like a very functional, aggressive steal and sack deck. I don't think you don't have any reservations about that. There's nothing in the format that really punishes that kind of thing that I can see. So yeah, I think red black's gonna be pretty solid.
Well, so what? We'll spend a bit longer on these gold cards.
Yeah.
Fly through the monocolor ones. What? Aside from the 2/2 that sacks a creature.
Sorry, repeat that. My headphone came out just quickly. Repeat that again.
What's going to be your 2-drop of choice aside from there's like the ghoul that pay 1 sack a creature gets +1/+1 counter.
Mm-hmm.
But red doesn't really have 2-drops that I'm happy about in red black.
Right. Yeah, that's true. They're kind of just like generic red aggressive, not just like greats. Yeah, I agree.
Like my concern with a lot of the red decks is
Mhm.
that they're more like heavy the other color and like a little bit of red. So you need the other color to be more open to support that.
Yep.
Because like red's 2-drops, you have like Axguard Cavalry is unexciting. You have the 2/2 that gets +1/+1 menace if you have a 4-power creature. That's not gonna like play that well in red black. And then there's one more. Oh, and then there's the archer that triggers off non-creature spells, which is not gonna like do much in this deck either. So I think there's a bit of an issue with some of the aggressive red decks in finding what they're going to be doing on turn 2.
Yeah, definitely. And part of that could just be, I feel like this was kind of true in Duskmourn, where, the 2-drops at common were fairly interchangeable for, red black, for example. But, if you had some of the premium ones, Piggy Bank and the Gremlin, like, those helped a lot too. So, I imagine you can prop that up from the good uncommons. And black had a few pretty good ones. Red had 1 or 2 good uncommons that, 2-drop. So I think that you're right. There's a bit of a common problem there, but I think if your colors are open, you're still gonna have access to good cards.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to join me at that B minus then for Alesha?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
sounds
join
good.
you.
All right. Ashroot Animus, the red-green card up next. This is 2 red-green for a 4/4 trample at rare. When this attacks, another target creature you control gets trample and gets +X/+X until end of turn. Where X is this creature's power. So we've got a 4-mana 4/4 trample, no protection, no ETB, but can be responsible for a heck of a lot of damage.
Yeah, we've seen effects like this in red-green cards before, and they're usually not this much of a bonus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, that's a big attack bonus.
Yeah, trample and the giant boost, and this plays very well with combat tricks. Plays anything, well, with any creatures that pump power. Yeah, you can like definitely set up some combo kills here and there. I can see that.
Still not going to go super high on this.
Yep, agree.
I think it's probably like a C+.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. The problem of expensive creature with no ETB, no protection. I can kind of, with Llanowar, if you have some Llanowar elves and it comes down a little bit earlier, I can kind of, forgive that a little bit. So that might be some consideration. But I agree. I would give Ashroot Animus just a C+.
Yeah,
Next,
I do think
yeah.
red-green is going to depend a lot on Llanowar elves. Like, I don't think this is one of the best color pairs, but if you can curve like Llanowar elf into 3-drop into 4-drop and like get your 4-power stuff started basically a turn early, then it'll still be pretty good.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Moving on to green-white's gold card here, Anthem of Champions. This is green-white for an enchantment at rare. And very simple, creatures you control get +1/+1. So it's just a Glorious Anthem that costs 2 mana instead of 3.
Yeah, should be pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, the support's definitely there for this kind of card. Like, there is a lot of go white support, in white specifically, but one or two things in green, that make a token or two. So yeah, I think this is not a complicated card by any means, well supported, and I would give Glorious Anthem generally like a maybe like a B minus C plus, and I think this is probably about that. Like, I think I would just stamp Anthem Champions with a B minus. Did you want to go any higher than that?
No, that sounds good. Although notably, it is interesting. I did a search today because I was kind of reviewing some of these,
Mm-hmm.
and not even counting the things that pump like a specific type of creature, like Elvish Archdruid we're going to see today, the Imperial Eagle that pumps
Yep.
flyers, the like Dwayne yesterday who pumps elves. Like there's a few of those. Even if you ignore those, there are 10 mass pump effects in this set.
Wow, really?
Well, so
Jeez.
yesterday we saw, yesterday we saw Balmor.
Yeah.
We saw Dauntless Veteran, the 2/2 for 3 that pumps when it attacks.
Yeah.
We saw Goblin Surprise, which is the +2/+0
Mm-hmm.
Trumpet Blast. There was Heraldic Banner, the +1/+0 to a certain color of creature. There was
Claws out, the cat one.
Heroic Reinforcements, Claws Out, and
Jeez.
Overrun.
Wow.
And then there's a couple more today. So there's a huge number of like mass pump effects, and so I do think there's going to be a lot of repetitiveness in like make a bunch of tokens, try and kill you.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see that being the case. Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't, like, as we were going through the card, I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't clock that, that we had so many of those. So, yeah, it's kind of funny. Is this, like, even the best of the bunch? I mean, it's probably up there.
Yeah, I think this one's good.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. And green white is a color pair. Again, kind of like black red. I almost feel like the stated theme is secondary to something else. Like, the stated theme is like +1/+1 counters, but the support for that, there's not that much of it. And I think, yeah, you're just oftentimes going to be like a heavy white deck with some green cards. I don't think you're often going to be like heavy green with some white cards.
Yeah, it makes Llanowar Elves kind of like I don't think we discussed this yesterday. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't cut lands for Llanowar Elf typically, right? Like,
No, because then that makes it like if you cut lands for Llanowar Elves, it decreases the effectiveness of that card. Because the effectiveness of that card is you're always a mana ahead, and if you miss a land drop because you've cut down on a land, then you're basically paying one for a land, and that's just not good. I think at some point, if you're like close to mono green and you have like multiples, you can start to cut. But I wouldn't just I wouldn't go first Llanowar Elf out land out first Llanowar Elf in. I don't think that's the way you want to do it.
yeah, I agree with you there, but it does mean like you need basically a minimum of like 8 green sources
Mm-hmm.
to play it on turn 1,
Yep.
and then that's also providing more green. So there is some. You talked about it being more heavy white and then going into green, but like Elf is good enough that it kind of pushes you a little bit the other direction. So I'm not exactly sure what green white's going to look like in the end.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. Yeah, we'll see. Okay, let's move on to the next one here. Alenda, Saint of Dusk, the black-white one. 2 black-white for a 4/4 legendary creature at rare. She's got lifelink and hexproof from instants. She also says, as long as your life total is greater than your starting life total, she gets +1/+1 and has menace, so 5/5 lifelink. And she gets +5/+5, an additional +5/+5 if your life total is at least 10 greater than your starting life total. So I think we're mostly looking at this as a 4 mana 4/4 lifelink pro instance. There is a supported life gain theme, but even then, like, staying above 20 is a little bit difficult.
So this came up in your Discord, and
Yeah.
I think this is correct, but I'm not sure. If you're at 17 or higher and get into combat with this, and they block with a 4/4,
Mm-hmm.
this thing survives, right?
Believe so, because state-based actions are checked after, like, yeah, like, state-based actions kill creatures, not damage, and you'll be at a higher life total by the time that's all checked. So yes, I believe that's true.
Yeah, so just be careful with that because people are really going to get got with
Yeah, that's true too.
like you have to put an extra power on this in a lot of cases.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So, how do you like this card? I think it's a little bit, it's fine. It's definitely a solid card, and it has some form of protection. I'll give it that.
Yeah, hexproof from instance is probably going to be more annoying than it
Mm-hmm.
seems. Like most of the removal that people want to play is instant speed. Like there's not aside from the banishing light, there's not really any sorceries I can think of that I'm going to be using to kill creatures.
Yeah, actually, I think most of the things that would kill a 4/4 are instants. Like there's like I guess the red sorcery that's 6 mana, that can kill this. But even like Rabid Bite, that's an instant.
I
Uh,
guess bushwhack,
Bush,
but like
yeah,
yeah.
sure, Bushwhack works if you have a big enough creature. Yeah, I do think that this is like a good form of protection. Like I will count that as protection.
Yeah. And lifelink is pretty like if you get to untap with this and then start getting in with it and
Mm-hmm.
protecting it, it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. That being said, I think not a card that blows me away or anything. Still, I would give Alenda a B minus.
Yeah, okay. I was talking you up because I thought you were going to give it somewhere in the C range, but
No,
I
no, I
do
think
agree that it's
yeah,
probably B
4/4
minus.
lifelink is pretty strong. Next up, we have a really fun one here: Thousand Year Storm. So this is 4 blue-red for enchantment at rare. It says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it for each other instant or sorcery spell you've cast before it this turn. You may choose new targets for the copies. So we were saying that there's not a lot of like depth to this set, not a lot of cool things. I mean, here is one thing. I don't think it's great, but it's a thing to do.
Is this one like there's a much better version in red, isn't there, that we're going to see?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I think this is kind of not just a lesser version of a card that also exists that is better for this kind of thing.
Yeah, like this you need to it does nothing on turn 6 and then if you untap and cast a spell with it, like to be
Yep.
clear, it doesn't do anything until you cast the second spell.
Right. Yeah.
So I was just going to give this an
I
F.
think so too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I want to point it out as like a fun thing to do, but I agree it's most likely not going to be very strong. Next up is Niv Mizzet Visionary. This is 4 blue-red for a 5/5 legendary creature at Mythic. It's a dragon wizard, both slightly relevant creature types. It's got flying, and it says you have no maximum hand size. It also says whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, you may draw that many cards. So 6 mana, 5/5 flyer. No max hand size is, a throwaway line of text for the most part. And not a ton of ways to deal non-combat damage to your opponent in this set.
Oh,
You
burst lightning.
burst lightning, yeah, makes burst lightning really, really good. 5 mana, deal you 4, draw 4.
Yeah, it's prophetic bolt to shame,
Yeah,
but like burst lightning is common, so
sure,
it's gonna
sure,
come up.
yeah.
I mean, there are some other ways that are going to be less good. Like
hmm
you don't want to play the lava spike just because you have a Niv Mizzet, for example.
I think in most decks, this is just gonna be worse than like Shivan Dragon, though.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's
Yeah,
like I'm gonna give it like a D.
yeah, yeah. Not very exciting. Yeah, I'll give it a D plus. I think it's slightly better, and you can maybe maximize on it 1 or 2 times throughout the course of the set. I would say where you have like an actual good chunk of things that deal non-combat damage. I'm trying to think if there's like a creature or like something that you could play this and you like draw the cards right away. I don't there's no like
Well,
pinger, I don't think.
there's multiple things that trigger off of instants and sorceries being cast, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm just saying like, the turn this comes down, like you tap out for this and you draw a card right away with something.
Right. I guess you need 3 cards at that point. You need the
Yeah,
Niv Mizzet, you need either the 2/2 dragon or the 2/1 common, and then you need like a 1 mana spell.
right. Yeah, I guess this actually is kind of funny with the 3 mana 2/2 flyer dragon because that triggers off dragons too. Not that you draw a card off of that, but yeah,
Yeah, because it's a cast trigger, right?
yeah, it's a cast trigger. And yeah, in any
Yeah.
case, I think this card is just a playable but nothing exciting. I would give it a D plus.
Yeah, despite blue red having 2 cards, neither of them are that exciting. But
hmm
I do think there's like when you look at the red card file, I think the color it supports most is actually blue
Yeah,
red.
I think so too.
And so I think there's a deck here. And again, we're kind of wish-washy on these. I'm not sure if any of them are going to be great, but I think blue red has potential.
It is kind of funny that I think the best blue red gold card in the set's just Balmor, just the uncommon, right? Instead of the one of the 2 rares here. Next up, we've got Lathril, Blade of the Elves. So this is 2 black-green for a 2/3 legendary creature, Elf Noble at rare. It's got Menace, so 4 mana, 2/3 Menace. Whenever Lathril deals combat damage to a player, create that many 1/1 green Elf Warrior creature tokens. And you can also tap Lathril and tap 10 untapped elves you control. Each opponent loses 10 life and you gain 10 life.
Is this just Legolas?
Just as in like a 4 mana 2/3 that does something once in a while. I think it's a little bit better than that. Like I think that this is a real like you have to kill this or else it gets out of hand. Legolas, I can't really say that about that card.
Yeah, it's still a 2/3
Yeah.
menace for 4.
Yeah, I
That
don't want to
means
talk it
that
up too much. I don't think it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you. It's slightly better, but I think this is going to be picked like way higher than it should be.
I do too. Yeah, I think so too. You want to give us a D plus as well?
I do want to give this a D plus.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it sounds a little bit harsh, some of the grades we're giving for these cards, but yeah, they're just like I think like you said, we've seen a lot of uncommons that are just more exciting, better than these cards. Next up we've got. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, just while we're doing the pairs, I'm
Forgot. Yeah. Sorry, my bad.
Cards. Black green is. I'm having a tough time predicting. Like part of the reason we didn't talk about yesterday is because I don't think there is a very clear archetype rankings. We've usually been pretty on the nose, even if we don't get everything right in our set review.
Mm-hmm.
Like we talked about blue, red, and white, green not doing so well in Duskborn, and that came to fruition. Lots of examples to that. I have a tough time predicting color pairs in this set, and I again think green black's going to be like fine, and I don't really know much more to add to that.
Yeah, I agree because I don't think there's any like all of the themes seem like reasonably well supported. I guess if I maybe had to call out one, like green white is the one maybe we're least excited about. And I think it's just gonna come down to like the more meta dynamics at play. Like how do the games playing out? Are they mostly all about they like play some tokens, pump them? Like, if that's the best thing to do, then it just shifts the value of like a control deck, for example. Because if you have a control deck with a bunch of removal, then you're not going to be very good against the token decks if that's the best thing in the format to do. So yeah, it's going to be something that we'll see how it shakes out. But I agree. I don't have as strong feelings towards what decks are going to be good as I have in some sets.
Well, so the deck I was lowest on by far, because usually I look at the commons and uncommons first.
Mm-hmm.
I thought blue-green was going to be terrible, but then we're about to get to like the the rare and mythic for blue-green. I think they did a pretty good job with this set in juicing up the like rares for the weaker color pairs and kind of balancing that. And then also I think there's very few like slam dunk A+ rares today. So
Yep.
I'm looking forward to the balance of this set. I think they've done a pretty good job with that.
Yeah, I do too. Let's get to those. Oh no, not yet. I was gonna say let's get to those awesome blue-green rares. We still have Boros to go. Swiftblade Vindicator is a reprint. This is red-white for a 1/1 double strike, vigilance, trample. Pretty simple.
Yeah, this card is good, and I think this deck is going to be good. I think red-white will be one of the boogeymen of the format.
Yeah, I do too. This card it doesn't have like. So what are the best things to do with this naturally? Like combat tricks, obviously, kind of come to mind. But there's no like 3 mana card that like puts a counter on something. This was originally in Guilds of Ravnica with the mentor mechanic where you could like pile counters on this thing. I don't think there's all that much. I guess there's a good handful of equipment that we talked about.
Yeah, you get 2 treasures with pick, right?
2 treasures with pick. Yeah, that is pretty nice. Heroic Reinforcements plays well with this card.
Yeah, there's the Felidar, the 2/3 lifelink that adds 2 counters to things.
Yeah,
in white.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, yeah, no, there's a good handful of things. So, yeah, I was kind of just blanking on them for a second. Yeah, card's good. It was good last time. I think it's gonna be just as good. I would have given this card like a B back in the day, and I think I'll give Swiftblade Vindicator a B today as well.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, now we get to our Simic cards. So we've got Coma. It's not the old Coma. It's not a reprint. When I saw this card, I read it as read the title, read the name, and read the rarity symbol. And I was like, my God, what have they done shifting this down to rare? But it's actually just a new card. Still a very good one, though. So this is Coma World Eater. 3 green, green, blue, blue. For a legendary creature at rare. It's an 8/12. Just massive. Can't be countered. Has trample. Has ward 4, which that is almost hexproof. And it says when Coma deals combat damage to a player, create 4 3/3 blue serpent creature tokens named Coma's Coil. Wow.
Yeah. Like when I first parsed this, I did it differently. I realized it was a different card. I read it as A 3/3, and I still thought like, okay, that's pretty
It's
good.
pretty good,
And
yeah.
it makes 4 of them.
Yeah, 4 is like so overkill. Like I 2 would be like, oh wow, that's pretty good. But 4 just seems like you just want to have like no chance of them winning if you ever connect with this thing.
And like 12 toughness with
Oh,
trample. Like
gosh, yeah.
often the way to deal with this kind of thing is like, oh, okay, I've got a death touch creature, but
Mm-hmm.
you still get 4 creatures.
Yeah, yeah, jeez. And green's got some pretty good ramp that even fixes colors. Like we were talking, like you mentioned this yesterday when we were talking about. I think it was Grow from the Ashes, the 3-mana ramp spell. Like I think you're gonna want that card when you have Coma in your deck.
Burnished Heart was one. Yeah.
Yeah, Burnish Heart. Sorry, that might have been the one actually that you'd mentioned that for. But yeah, this is a fantastic card. A might be A+.
Yeah, I think I'll give it just an A.
I think so
But,
too. Yeah.
yeah, this is going to be very annoying.
Yeah, excellent. Zimone Paradox Sculptor is the Simic Mythic. So this is 2 green blue for a 1/4 legendary creature, human wizard. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures you control. And you can pay green blue to tap Zimone, double the number of each kind of counter on up to 2 target creatures and or artifacts you control. Oof, man, this is like there's the white common we talked about, the cat, the 2/3 lifelink that comes in and puts 2 counters or something is just like a mega version of that basically.
Yeah, this is things on steroids. Like that. Oh my goodness, Demone is maybe the best card in the set. Like I think this is an A+.
Yeah, this card's really really good. Just immediate impact. You can target itself, even if they kill this. Like you've gotten a good amount of value. Yeah, I think I'm probably still just gonna give it an A myself, but you could be right for sure.
We talked a bit about not being that interested in splashing a lot of cards in this set, but this card I'm gonna make it work every time.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. In any case, yeah, busted card. You should take this, and it doesn't get too much more complex than that. But let's talk about green blue quickly, because I think this is one of the lesser supported color pairs.
Yeah, so green blue, the advertised thing it's doing is ramp, like very generic. Kind of struggles with interaction. Like you have bushwhack, which is like a fight, and then bite down, and then the whatever the grip tide is for this set.
Yep.
So a little bit, but not a lot. But I don't see the like vision for what your curve is at common. Like, are you playing more counter spells? Are you playing more creatures? Are you like trying to get like the 6-drop green card into play quickly? Because it doesn't. I don't really see the reward for ramping beyond Coma.
Right. Yeah, I think it's probably going to be a deck that if you see your opponent playing islands and forests, like you can pretty safely assume I think they have Coma or Zimone in their deck. Like there's just not that many reasons. I guess maybe people might be enticed by Tatiova. So maybe that's not exactly true. But yeah, I can't see myself naturally ending up there very often. I think the colors, just like what they're doing, kind of, they don't fight each other. Like, card draw and ramp, they tend to go together. But I think a lot of the cards just don't have natural synergies like they do for some other color pairs.
Yeah, and I do think if you can be heavy in one color of either green or blue in pack one, I think Coma is gonna get passed. Like it's
Yeah,
really hard to cast.
it
So
is.
you can stay open to the possibility of being green blue in pack two. Like pack three is probably too late to abandon an entire color, but you might get hooked up a few times.
Yeah, definitely could be. Although maybe the green player just snipes it and casts it with Grow from the Ashes, which does double fix you. So, there's the chance that happens. But you're right. I think a lot of times you will get rewarded with a Coma, if one's open. Anyways, let's go to a few non-2-color gold cards here. We've got Muldrotha the Gravetide up first. This is 3 black, green, blue for a 6/6 legendary creature at Mythic. It says during your turn, you can play a land and cast a permanent spell of each permanent type from your graveyard.
So this is another reprint. I
Yep.
didn't play this set. I think this card's pretty good though, right?
Yeah, it is pretty good. It's very big. 6 mana, 6/6. Does protect against some amount of removal, and well, that's kind of all the quote unquote protection it gets. You just draw so many cards off this thing when you get to untap with it. Like you get to play a creature. I guess without a ton of varied card types, like this card for example, I think would be great in Duskmourn because you got enchantment creatures and artifact creatures, and for what it's worth, if you have a card type with 2 types, like say you have a creature and an artifact creature in your grave, you can cast the creature and say, I want to cast this artifact, and you can cast that too. It's not like, oh, you've already cast the creature, you can't cast another. If you have cards with multiple card types, play well with Muldrotha. So yeah, just casting a creature once per turn from your grave, like that's pretty strong.
And this does, like, the Sultai colors do some amount of self-mill in this format.
Yep.
So it's pretty easy to, like, yeah, to have lots of things as options when you do untap with this.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
so I'll let you lead the grade on this one.
Yeah, it's a strong card, not a busted one. I would give Muldrotha a B-.
B minus? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll just join you.
Sweet.
I'll trust you.
And here's a pretty easy F. Progenitus is a white, blue, blue, black, black, red, red, green, green, 10/10 with protection from everything. And if it would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, you shuffle it into your library instead. Uncastable. I think we just give this one an F.
Yeah, they gave us Zombify, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's true. You can't even put it in the graveyard. A few artifacts here. Scrawling Crawler is 3 mana for a 3/2 artifact creature at rare. It says, at the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card, and whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 1 life.
I think I like this.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, my mind goes to better in an aggressive deck than a controlling deck, because,
Yep.
all things being equal, if the aggressive player can draw a bunch of cheap cards and keep, playing things, then the slower deck, who's probably already equipped with some card draw, that, makes those cards a little bit less good. They have expensive cards, usually a slower deck, so they have a hard time deploying the cards that they've drawn in a timely manner. Obviously, the damage counts here. Are you seeing this as anything else than an aggressive card? Like, would you consider playing this in a slower deck?
No, we don't have Wheel of Fortune for the combo, if that's what you're talking
Right.
about.
No. Can't combo kill with this thing.
But yeah, like the fact that it does something like right away. It's got the line of text from whatever the red card was in Duskborn we just played, and then it basically pings for 2, right? Like
Right.
every turn.
Yep, two every turn cycle, basically, if not more.
Yeah, I think this card is just good.
So what do you want to give it? I don't disagree. I don't think it's a bad card, but I still don't think I'd be willing to rate it very highly.
I was going for C+.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say C. So
Okay.
yeah, we're kind of in the same ballpark. Yeah, well, we'll see. I think if you're gonna play this card, it's an aggressive card. It's not a controlling card. Is probably the way you want to frame it. Next up, we've got kind of an interesting one. Leyline Axe. This is 4 mana for an artifact equipment at rare. The equip cost is 3, but as the name might have tipped you off to, if it's in your opening hand, you can put it onto the battlefield for free. And the effect is the equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has double strike and trample. Hey, that's just Embercleave. And also has actually Embercleave's cost as well. Funny enough, the 3 mana to equip.
Yeah, that is a terrifying set of abilities.
Yeah, really, really strong set of abilities. So great, if you can just cast this for free, that's generally going to be pretty good. But is the actual cost a bit too prohibitive, do you think?
Well, my opponents are always going to have this in their opening hand, and I never will.
Of course.
That's how Magic works,
Yeah.
right? That's just. But I think it washes, like, getting it to cost 7 mana to get it going is a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, Embercleave is basically like 2.
Right, a lot of the time, yeah.
I mean, not always 2, but
Well,
a huge.
often, yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I think this card, it's going to be an averaging out grade, of course, because I think the times when it's on your opening hand are going to be so much better than the times you actually have to pay that 4 mana. So it's the kind of card that's not going to always perform. If you look on 17 lands, it's going to be like, oh, this is a 56% win rate card. Well, sometimes it's going to perform as a 52, sometimes it's going to perform as a 60. those numbers probably aren't exactly right, but you know what I mean. And so I probably will just average it out to a grade like that and give Layla and X a C plus.
Yeah, I'm flipping. I went C plus on the last one. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go C on Layla and
Okay.
X. I could see it being a little bit more awkward, but yeah, it'll be a real groan test when you're on the plane and your opponent goes up,
Yeah,
up.
pre-game action. Thank you very much. Yeah, definitely cool card though. I like seeing. I was just saying, man, they're printing too many ley lines, but I think it's cool if they have designs like this. All right, we've got a old favorite here, Solemn Simulacrum, 4 mana for a 2/2 artifact creature at rare. When it enters, you search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and when it dies, you can draw a card.
Jens Thorin.
Yep.
Not using the same art anymore, but yeah, I've got a fondness for this card as a boomer.
Yep.
It's definitely not as good as it was in original Mirrodin, but I still quite like it. I was still, maybe this is optimistic, but I was leaning towards like a B.
Well, I think it's a little high. I was gonna say C plus for this card. We had it pretty recently, in a core set, and it was about that. Like, it was fine. I think you want to play this in a deck that's decidedly not aggressive. Like, this is a slower deck card. You don't want to be playing a 4-minute due-to. But like in like the if you've got a Coma in your deck, if you've got just some good 7-drop, there's a few good expensive cards we're gonna see as we go on today. Like, this is a card you're gonna want. So never gonna be terrible. I probably would shy away from playing it in an aggro deck, but if it's like your 23rd, it's not gonna be the worst thing ever. But yeah, in most slower decks, it's gonna be a quality card. So for me, that's a C plus. But if you want to give it a higher grade, I wouldn't fault you.
I'll taper it down to a B minus
Okay.
just to keep it in the B range.
Yeah, sounds good. We've got Banner of
Gotta go.
Kinship up next. This is 5 mana for an artifact at rare. As it enters, choose a creature type. This artifact enters with a fellowship counter on it for each creature of the chosen type. And creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1 for each fellowship counter on this artifact.
Right. So I don't think you need all of your creatures to be one type for this to be good.
But a lot of them.
If you can get to the point where half is what, like 7 or 8 creatures of a type?
Mm-hmm.
If you have 2 out when you cast this, it's like a double anthem for only half your things, though, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe right. Maybe right.
I don't think this card is unplayable, but the thing is, I think even in like a super heavy... Well, in a super heavy like elf deck, I think it's probably pretty good. Like, if you've got 9, 10 elves, of course, elf tokens count too. Like,
A lot of cats, too.
cats, yeah, cats and elves are probably the two things you're looking at here, right?
But so, like, a build around C+?
Yeah, that's about... I would just say like building around B minus. That might be a little bit high, and I think that's the number you're aiming for, just as some guidelines, is 8 or 9. I would say.
Yeah. I think 9, and you can count. I think you can count tokens as extras for that.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I would agree with that. So any like your Dwynen's Elites and your Prideful Parents, those count kind of 1.5 or 2.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got a colorless card, not an artifact. This is Sire of 7 Deaths. This is a 7 mana 7/7 Eldrazi at Mythic, and it's got First Strike, Vigilance, Menace, Trample, Reach, Lifelink, and Ward. Pay 7 life. Just a laundry list of keyword abilities here. Really good card though.
Yeah, this is exactly what you need to stabilize the game once you get to 7 mana.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we were a little high on Meteor Golem yesterday, but this is a heck of a lot better than that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, this is like, I was just talking about there are some good 7-drops in this set that you can ramp into, and this is one of the ones I was thinking about. Very similar to, there was the one from Brothers War, the 7/5. You could prototype it for like 1 black, and it was a 3/3 lifelink menace with ward equal to its power. That card is really good. I think this card it's different. There's no buyout for 3 mana, but also it's better when it's actually on the battlefield by quite a bit, I would say.
Yeah, it's extremely hard to kill this. Like, you need to block with a ridiculous amount of creatures.
Right, because first strike. Yeah, that's and of course Menace almost doesn't. I mean, Menace matters because it can't be chump blocked, but I mean
Well,
Trample.
it's a trample
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Menace is like kind of sneakily not actually adding too much to this card. Anyways, this card's great. I'm going between like an A minus and an A.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's in that range. I will give it an A minus, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's about right too.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. That's gonna bring us to a land, Soulstone Sanctuary. It's a rare land that taps out colorless. It also has the ability for this land becomes a 3/3 with vigilance and is all creature types. Also, still a land.
They've power crept my boy Stalking
Stocking
Stones.
stones. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
notably that's not till end of turn, so it's just permanently a 3/3.
yep, just becomes a thing. So, is this passing the bar for you for colorless land?
Yes.
Yep, me too. This card's pretty strong.
Yeah, I think this is like you play this in every deck. If
Hmm.
it's your 18th land, you're just fine with that, I think.
Yeah. What about the 17th? Are you replacing? Is this
It
good enough?
depends how good your mana is, I
Yeah.
think. Like I think that's gonna depend on sources more than anything else.
Right. If you have a lot of double pips, probably not going to want to play this. But if you are pretty clean on the mana, then more likely to.
Yeah, I'm just saying like this is good enough that you take it pretty high and like just never cut it. Like
Right.
it's just good.
B minus then?
Yeah, I like B minus
Yeah.
for
B
this.
minus for Soulstone Sanctuary. Nice. All right. Just got to go back up to the top here because this is organized slightly weird. Everybody who is sensitive to scrolling cards, look away.
You can
It's weird. I'm in the right place, but it's just organized weird. So there's no actual way to. I mean, I could do by color. This is true, but then this is just faster.
yeah,
Okay. Do. Okay. All right. That is going to move us on to the Wooburg cards now, starting with white. And we've got Authority of the Consuls first up. This is a single white mana for an enchantment at rare. Creatures your opponent control enter tapped. And whenever a creature an opponent controls enters, you gain 1 life. Nah.
no, it's
No,
enough.
just, yeah, doesn't do enough. F for Authority of the Consuls. Next up is Sky Knight Squire, 1 and a white for a 1/1 Cat Scout at rare. Whenever another creature you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And as long as this creature has 3 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it has flying and is a knight in addition to its other types. I don't believe the knight part is very relevant, but, obviously flying is.
Right, right. And the counters could potentially be relevant as well.
Yep, for sure. Strong card. Very, very strong card.
Yeah, not a great top deck.
No, of
But
course.
there's a lot of things that make multiple bodies, so this can grow like really quickly.
Yeah, just doing this into the 3 mana common that makes token, 2/2 that makes token. Like this is a 3/3.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were
And also
talking. Oh, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
it doesn't have to have the counters put on it from this. Like if you play the Felidar Sovereign or whatever it's called, the thing that puts a counter on it, that's gonna count twice for
Yep.
this.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So yeah, like you said, not a very good top deck, but most 2 drops tend not to be. But this one's even a little bit worse, I think, than some others. Um. Yeah,
I'm somewhere between B and B plus.
I think B plus sounds appropriate. It's just so good in your opening hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I like B plus for the night. All right, next up is a reprint, Jada, Font of Hope. So this is 1 and a white for a 2/2 flying vigilant legendary creature at rare. She's an angel. And it says each other angel you control enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it for each angel you already control. And she taps to add white, but spend this mana only to cast angel spells. This is a Streets of New Capenna reprint, and I remember when this card was in that set, I was like, okay, it's a 2/2 vigilant flyer, like it's not too bad, but more often than I would have expected, that angel line of text actually came up quite a bit. Obviously, part of that was that there was a busted angel common in that set, Inspiring Overseer. But even that aside, there was a good handful of angels. And I think we're going to see kind of the same thing here, where don't discount that line of text, because that matters.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird line to parse, but basically because this is an angel, your next one's going to come in with at least 1 counter, and then they kind of proliferate from there almost.
Yeah, exactly. So this was just one of the more solid rares back then, and I think the set it's got kind of a lot of the same stuff going on here. I would give Jutta a B.
Yeah, I like B for Jetta.
Yeah, sounds good. Next up is Crystal Barricade, 1 and a white for an 0/4 Defender. It's an artifact creature at rare. You have hexproof and prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to creatures you control.
To other creatures.
Sorry, other creatures. Yeah, this one can still
They
be
can,
affected.
yeah, they can burn this.
Yep.
But not anything else.
Uh,
It's pretty bad, but I think I'm okay with giving this like a sideboard grade. I think you board this in against red.
yep, I agree with that. Just a sideboard grade. Next
Okay.
up is Celestial Armor, 2 and a white for a equipment at rare. It has flash, and it says when this equipment enters, attach it to target creature you control. The creature gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. The equipped creature has +2/+0 and has flying. And the actual equip cost is 3 and a white.
This thing's busted, isn't it?
Card's very, very good. Yeah, it's so I think the rates, the effect, like I think pretty easily spells out a good card if you just read it. It's pretty strong. But I think the play patterns with this are going to be kind of interesting to figure out. Like, are you going to want to save this as a protection spell? Are you going to want to just cast this and just start pushing damage? It's going to depend game in, game out. I would imagine you probably want to. It's probably going to get held in hand a little more often than it should. I think a lot of times you're just going to want to be like, all right, send my big thing to the sky, start clocking ya, deal with this. This is kind of like the Maul of the Skyclave. Actually, pretty reminiscent of that for people who played with that card. It was in cubes for a while. But yeah, this card seems very strong to me.
Like hexproof and indestructible. It's also like you can use it to block effectively. It's a protection spell. Like
Yeah.
I think this is really good.
Yeah, I think this card's great. Where does it lie though on our old grading scale?
I want to give this an A.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, good defensively, good offensively, very flexible. The equip cost is a bit expensive, but when you're beating your opponent down, like you don't mind just turning everything into a threat each turn. Do be careful. Just if your opponent's leaving up mana, don't expect this to be like, all right, equip this to my other thing, and don't expect to go untouched. But yeah, card's good. Next up is Arabo, the First Fang. This is 2 and a white for a 2/2 legendary creature, cat avatar at rare. Other cats you control get +1/+1. And whenever Arabo or another non-token cat you control enters, create a 1/1 white cat creature token.
So it's already 4/4 worth of stats for 3 mana off
Yeah,
the bat. Like
yeah.
without anything else.
Which is great.
Yeah, and then any cats you've already played are bigger. Any cats you play in the future triggers even more. Like this is if this is your only cat, you're still gonna play this.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not even really a build around because number one, it's like you said, you just play this no matter what. If it's your only cat, you would play it and it's going to be good. But number two, a lot of the good commons are just cats. Like you're not going to have to jump through hoops, change your pick orders. Like it's just going to play out naturally well. So yeah, I think this card's great. I would give Arabo an A.
I was gonna go A-.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay.
Yeah, totally fair enough. This is Raised from the Past. So our next card, 2 white for a sorcery at rare. Return all creature cards with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield.
This is I think more interesting than Thousand Year Storm because I think this actually can be good.
Sure.
Like, it requires building around for this.
Yeah, and the build around is like you've got 10 2-drops, I would say, somewhere around there.
Do you really need that many? Like that's a ton.
Maybe 8?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about it now. I didn't really put it into quantification, but you can include 1-drops in that too, and there are a number
Sure.
of good 1-drops.
Yeah, Healer's Hawk.
Healer's Hawk, Llanowar Elf,
Yeah.
the fanatical firebrand type of thing.
Yeah, your goal with this is
So-
getting back 2 things. And I think 8 or 9 or 10 kind of sounds about right to me.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. I guess it is maybe doable. So build around grade for sure. Do you want to give it like a build around B-?
I was going to go like build around C. Because even if you have a deck for it, like sometimes your creatures are on the battlefield, then you draw this, like you just got a good beatdown going on, and you're like, oh, I'd rather this just be a creature or a combat trick. You also have situations where you just happen to draw the wrong half of your deck and you don't draw those 2s. So I think even in a deck where you meet the requirement, it's going to be a little bit awkward sometimes.
Yeah, and someone in chat mentions collective company that we had last set, which we gave a build around grade 4, and people are not going to put enough. Like the cards in to actually have it hit the grade. So I expect this card to have actually really bad stats.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I build around C sounds fair to me. We'll go there.
Okay, cool. Next up is Exemplar of Light. This is 2 white for a 3/3 angel at rare. It's got flying, of course. And whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Whenever you put one or more +1/+1 counters on this creature, you draw a card. This ability triggers only once per turn. Wow, so just having one more thing for Healer's Hawk, just having Healer's Hawk on the battlefield, playing this, attacking, making this a 4/4, drawing a card right away. That seems good to me.
Yeah, this is. I don't think it needs a build around grade just because of the lands and Healer's Hawk and other incidental life gain. But
Yep, for sure. Yeah, almost Tatiova like in that way, where you can be like, well, I'll hold this till turn 5, play it on turn, play it with my 4 lands, play a tap land, gain my life, draw my card.
I'll go to A- for this.
Yep, that's exactly what I was going to give Exemplar as well. A- for Exemplar of Light. Good a classic here. Day of Judgments. 2 white, sorcery rare, destroy all creatures.
Yeah, this should perform well, and if we are right that the format ends up being about trumpet blasts and overruns, then wraths are always going to be good in those types of formats. Think I'm going to give it like a B.
Yep, I would say
Would
so
you go
too.
any higher than that?
Yeah, I guess just one thing to note is the more aggressive your deck is, the less you want this card. But I think that blue white's probably gonna want it, black white's probably gonna want it just fine. Some green white decks might want it, red white not as likely to. But so was that B? Did you say?
I think so.
Yeah, I'll give a B to Day of Judgment as well. Sounds good. All right, a Johnny up next. So our first Planeswalker. There are 5 in this set, 1 of each color. A Johnny, Color of the Pride. This is 1 white for a legendary creature at Mythic, 4 loyalty. First ability is +1. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature. -3. Target creature gains flying and double strike until end of turn. -8. Make X 2/2 white cat creature tokens, where X is your life total. So pretty offensively minded Planeswalker. Not doing much in the way of defending itself, and is pretty good at killing you though. Like that flying double strike, that can deal a lot of damage.
I mean, even without that, it's just like like a fight rigging or whatever, which is the types of cards are always good.
Totally. Yeah, card strong. Is it in the A range for you? Is it a high B?
I think I'd go up to A- for Johnny.
I like A- for a Johnny too. It's a strong card. Next up is Valkyrie's Call. So this is 3 white for an enchantment at Mythic. Whenever a non-token, non-angel creature you control dies, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. It has flying as an angel in addition to its other types. Interesting card.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So
what decks do you see this going in?
I almost want to say any white deck, because I think a faster white deck, like it just means that your creatures are virtually unblockable, and also if you're a little bit behind, you can just chump block with them, and you get a bigger creature, you get a flyer. In a slower deck, you stall at the ground a little bit. Maybe a green-white deck, you play this, makes combat and removal spells just a lot worse, a lot trickier for the opponent. So I think in most decks, you would just play this card.
And I guess there's also some like sacrifice synergies you can do in white-black.
Yeah, that's kind of cool too.
So are you just giving this a good grade then if you think it goes everywhere?
Yeah, I might be overrating how good it is in an aggro deck. Like, again, you might just want a creature, a pump spell, a removal spell in this card's spot. Maybe it's a little too hedgy in a aggro deck, but I'm going to start saying it's just good. And so I'm going to give Valkyrie's Call a B+.
B+, okay. Yeah, I think I'm a little lower, but I'm not confident enough to give it significantly lower, so I'll just give it a B.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, could see being wrong about it. Like, this is one of the few cards in the set that really, when I saw, I was like, ooh, that's an interesting one. I'm not actually, because we actually haven't had too many cards that have been like this, so it's a bit of a novel effect.
Yeah, I can see this being like the first time you cast it, and you're like, oh my god, this card's like an A.
Yeah, ridiculous. Exactly. Yeah, definitely could go either way. Next up is Herald of the Eternal Dawn. So this is 4 white for a 6/6 angel at Mythic. It's got flash, it's got flying, and it's got the Platinum Angel text. You can't lose the game, and your opponents can't win the game.
Yeah, it's fine. It does kill quickly.
Yeah,
Like,
kills quickly, can come down, eat something. Can, your opponent swing for lethal, you flash this in, eat something, swing back, or maybe not even eat
are you
something.
gonna eat something with this
Yeah,
and like
maybe
risk any combat?
totally. Yeah, maybe you don't even do that. 7 mana is a lot.
It is. Yeah. I don't think this card's amazing.
No, I don't either. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I would be hesitant to put this in a more aggressive deck, but I think that most just like non-red white decks are still gonna play it.
Well,
Yeah, I guess
what
that
grade are
they're.
you gonna give it? I'll ask you first.
Well, grade am I gonna give it? Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna give this a B minus. That might be even too high. No, I'm gonna go B minus. There is like significant upside with this card.
Okay. I am gonna go C minus.
Right.
A
Okay. Yeah,
lower on it.
I feel that. Chat's pointing out that this is a good Swiftfoot Boots target. Giving this hexproof is kind of cute, but I still don't think that is a competitively good thing to do.
Yeah, then you're at 8 mana, and like anytime you spend 8 mana on something, if it wins you the game, that sounds fair to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you like your C minus then?
I think so. I think this card's
Yeah.
not great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I could be a little bit too high on it. We're gonna move on to blue now. Back to the rares. Draycatcher up next is 1 and a blue for a 1/3 human wizard at rare. It's got vigilance and prowess, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, put that many incubation counters on it. Then you can remove 3 incubation counters from this creature to make a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying.
So how often do you think you're going to be making a Drake?
Really, not that often, I would imagine. Like
Right.
this
Like
has to deal damage 3 times. That's really difficult.
not 3 times. Like it basically has to deal damage twice, with one of those being like a turn you cast a spell.
Right. Yeah, that many. Sorry, I glossed over that many. Yeah, you're totally right. So
And it could
twice most
even like
likely.
if you sure strike this, you've got 1 2/3 Drakes already, right? Like
Yeah, that's kind of funny. Yeah, so it's a card that so it's best on turn 2. And the thing is your opponent it's not like kind of reminds me of Silent Hall Creeper from Duskmoor a little bit, where you play down turn 2 and your opponent's like, "Well, crap. If I don't have a removal spell right now, they're gonna get something out of it. A card. They're gonna make it bigger, so I can't. It makes it harder to deal with. Clock me quicker. This thing gives your opponent a little bit of breathing room. Like you're like, okay, I can take a hit from it, and maybe you're worried about blocking with your 2/2 on turn 2, and you don't want to risk them just casting a spell and eating your 2/2. But by the next turn, you'll probably have decent double blocks for it. I don't know. Maybe I'm underselling it a little bit, but it just seems like it's not great past turn 2, and even on turn 2, it'll give your opponent a bit of a sweat, but I don't think it's going to be great.
okay, so what grade do you want to give? Because maybe we'll disagree on this one too.
Yeah, I'm just going to give this one a C.
See, I'm a little higher on it.
Yeah?
Like the threat, any removal spell, they need like 2 3 toughness creatures back to threaten, your removal spell not doing what you need it to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is definitely fair. Yeah, maybe I'm a little too low on it. What did you want to give it?
I think I'm gonna go up all the way to B minus.
Ooh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, I can buy being a little bit too low on it. I might even just revise my grade right here to C plus. B minus seems a little bit too high, but I could be this is another one I could see being wrong about. Yeah.
Like the threat of this is more what I'm giving the power to than the actual words on the card.
Like yeah, it makes your opponent play a little bit differently, right? Like if they have a removal spell, they probably have to spend the turn being like, okay, actually have to kill this thing.
And if you can get that out of a 2-drop in a blue deck where it like forces your opponent to start playing defense,
Yeah.
like that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, no, you've sold me on that. Yeah, for sure. I think I'm still gonna stay with my C plus, but yeah, like I said,
Okay.
this is one I could see being wrong on. Okay, next up we've got Kiora the Rising Tides. This is 2 and a blue for a 3/2 legendary creature. It's a merfolk at rare. When it enters, you draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. And it has a threshold ability of when Kiora attacks, if you've got 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you make a legendary 5/5 blue octopus token called Scion of the Deep. So 3 mana, 3. Sorry, 8/8. 8/8, of course. It's an octopus.
It's
Where
way
the 5?
bigger than a 5/5.
There's no 5 on this card. I don't know why I said 5. It's an 8/8 token. That's much better. So you got a 3 mana 3/2 that comes in, doesn't net you card advantage, but filters you and fills your grave, and then is a pretty scary card as the game goes on.
Notably, I think I would still like this if it made a 5/5.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, the card would be great still.
Yeah, this card's really good.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, because the thing is, even if you just attack once with this, you cash in the Kiora, they eat it or trade with it, you're still very happy with that.
Yeah, and looting for 2, like that's a nice ETB.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty nice. Not a lot to dislike about the card.
Well, I mean, the thing to dislike is it's got 2 toughness. It dies to and and burst lightning. Like,
yeah, fair enough.
We're broken record at this point, but I am gonna give Kiora a B+.
Yep, that's where I was gonna go too. B+ for Kiora. Next up is Lunar Insight. 2 and a blue for a sorcery at rare. Draw a card for each different mana value among non-land permanents you control. It's kind of an interesting one. It's got a terrible floor of I do actual nothing. The ceiling's not that high though, because it's pretty hard to be like, okay, I'm gonna draw 4 off of this. In most games, I would say that's just like not something that's gonna happen very often.
Yeah, I think this is a card I will probably never play, but I could see, getting steamrolled by it a couple times.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's got like huge, massive upside, obviously. But I think on average, I don't think it's a card you want to put in your deck.
Yeah. So does that all wash out to like a D+?
Yeah, D+ for Lunar Insight. That sounds good. I think if you're playing this card, like what you're aiming for is just like a board stall, not really a bunch of removal spells, obviously, because you want to be affecting the board, but also creatures that just block well, not creatures that trade. Like just want to be incentivizing having permanents on the board. So kind of an interesting puzzle to solve, but not one that I think I'm that interested in.
Yeah, because you can't cast it until probably turn 5 or 6 in most games.
Yeah, exactly. And like part of the kind of lure of a divination effect, like a 3 mana draw 2, is it can help you hit your land drops. It can just smooth out the early game. This can't really do that.
Yeah.
Next up is High Fate Trickster. 3 and a blue for a 4/2 flying flash at rare. It says you may cast spells as though they had flash, just any spells. So simple card, 4/2 flash flyer that gives your things flash.
Yeah, that 2 toughness again. Like it's just there's many times. It's just crazy how many 3 and 4 drops die to like shock and stab.
It's such a loud 2 toughness on this card. It's like 4 mana 2 toughness is just so tough to get through.
I still think I'm gonna play this most of the time.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'm gonna give it like a C+.
Yep, C+ seems about right to me.
Okay.
We've got Homunculus Horde up next. Funny card. 3 and a blue for a 2/2 at rare. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a token that's a copy of this creature.
So it does get out of hand, but it's not going to be good on turn 4. On turn 5, like about the only thing that you're happy to trigger this with is like the 1/1 cat that draws a card in blue-white.
Well, there's the 1 mana
Fleeting
cantrip.
distraction, I guess.
Yeah,
fleeting. But then you need to do that on your turn. You can't use it as a trick at that point.
Right.
I think this card's bad.
I think so too. Yeah,
Okay.
Another thing that dies to the 1 mana spells for 4 mana
Yes.
and need some help to get going. Yeah, I think this is probably just an F.
You're gonna go all the way down to F.
I think so.
I don't think I'm gonna go quite that low.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe like a D-. Like I just don't think it was a card you should play.
Yeah, I'll give it a D.
Okay, fair enough. We've got Archmage of Ruins next up. This is 3 blue for a 3/6 at rare. Instant and sorcery spells you cast 1 less. And whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, draw a card.
I like the stat line on this
Wow.
for that ability.
Yeah.
This card's really good.
Yeah, this card is very, very strong. Just start storming off with this. Wow.
Not optional, so you can deck yourself.
Yeah, definitely in some risk of that. And like we mentioned yesterday, there's no Sam Black-esque shuffle your grave into your library card in this set.
Right.
Yeah, really great build around though. Or you know, probably not even build around. Any blue deck's gonna just play this card happily.
I want to give this an A minus.
Yep, that's what I'm gonna do too. A minus for Archmage of Runes. Next up is Extravagant Replication for blue for an enchantment at rare. At the beginning of your upkeep, you create a token that's a copy of another target non-land permanent you control.
So it's really slow.
Yes, 6 mana, do nothing. Have to wait till you untap. Your opponent sees it coming from a mile away, can disrupt it the first time you do it.
Yeah, you need to not only untap with it, but also still have something in play that's worth copying.
Right.
Is it better than F? That's what I'm wondering about.
Yeah, I think so. Not a lot better though. Like there is going to be games where this can just really get out of hand, but I think it's not a card you just want to throw into any deck and be like, yes, this is just going to make my deck better. Like I think you need to have a deck that has a board, again, gets to a board stall pretty easily. Can, you know, have some good into the battlefield effects maybe. Although maybe that's not that relevant. Like just making creatures every turn is just going to be pretty good.
You got to make like 3/3s or better to like feel like you're doing it.
Yeah. And that's not super hard, but yeah, again, like the setup cost there is pretty large. So I'm going to give this one a D. Not quite unplayable, but I don't expect that this is a card you should take highly or put in your deck very willingly.
Okay, I'll join you at D.
Next up is one I do think you should do those things for. Curator of Destinies. This is 4 blue for a 5/5 Sphinx at rare. Can't be countered. Has flying. And it says, when this creature enters, look at the top 5 cards of your library. Separate them into a face-down pile and a face-up pile. An opponent chooses one of those piles. Put that pile into your hand. The rest in your graveyard.
Wow, that's a lot of value on an uncounterable 6-drop.
Yeah. Card's great. Card's very, very strong. No, it's, you know, it's reverse factor fiction. They get to choose the final thing, which is much worse than actual factor fiction, but you're still going to draw, you know, 2 or 3 cards and be pretty happy with them.
Well, yeah, the face down, face up is more like Atris, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. Atris, that's true. And that was a really good effect. And this is 5 cards instead of 3.
Yeah, that one your opponent saw them and you did it, or you saw it? I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how it worked.
It's a fun little mini game. I like doing this, but either way, it's going to be basically like at worst, it's like a 5/5 draw 2 cards.
Yep.
And I mean, you can always draw. Like I guess at its worst, it's draw 3 because you can just choose 3 no matter what they are.
Yep. I agree. I would give Curator of Destinies an A. Yep. Just a fantastic card. We've got Time Stop up next, which is a card that has many words, but only 3 actual words that aren't reminder text. 4 blue for an instant at rare, and it says end the turn. And I will actually read out the reminder text because it's a little bit unintuitive if you've never seen a card that's like this. So when you end the turn, you exile all spells and abilities, including this spell. So effectively, you know, if your opponent casts something, cast this in response, counter it with this. The player whose turn it is discards down to their maximum hand size, damage shields, and this turn until the end of turn effects end. So it's sort of like a time walk that you get a little bit of bonus on if you can have your opponent cast a spell first, or, you know, it's you get them into combat and they cast a combat trick, you can counter that, or you know, if a combat goes wrong, cast this and combat just ends. It's not exactly strictly better than a time walk effect though, because you also let your opponent untap, you let your opponent draw a new card. So when you actually want to cast this card will vary game to game.
Well, you don't have to let them draw a card. You could do this upkeep.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. You could just do this upkeep. They still get to untap though. They're creatures in their lands, which, you know, obviously relevant.
Yeah, I'm not very high on Time Stop.
No, I don't think so either. I think that, like, 5 mana, like just Time Warp straight up would be, like, it's a solid card, not anything busted, but a solid limited card. And this is a bit more finicky and 1 more mana, so it's playable. Like I would give this a C minus maybe, but it's not a great one.
I am lower.
You're lower on it, yeah.
I'm gonna give it a D.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I think we're kind of mostly saying the same thing, just not great. I guess I just like a little bit better.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Next up is our Planeswalker, Kaido, Cunning Infiltrator. 1 blue for a 3 loyalty Planeswalker. Has a static ability. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you put a loyalty counter on Kaido. 3 abilities. +1, up to 1 target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. Draw a card, then discard a card. -2, you make a 2/1 blue ninja token. -9, you get an emblem with whenever a player casts a spell, you make a 2/1 blue ninja token.
I think it's pretty good. I think you're not going to see the -9 basically ever, but protecting itself with a creature goes down to 1 loyalty, but it can plus pretty quickly. And drawing, discarding in this set, you can discard your flashback cards. You can get something through that just to kill them. Like there's a lot of upside on the +1 there.
Yeah, and I think just going 2-drop into this down ticking, and then obviously hopefully being able to protect it from there, untap, do the +1, like keep your engines going, just being able to keep this just above at a healthy life total, so you're getting it with one thing, maybe looting and getting in, and still able to leave a blocker or 2 back. It's a little bit interesting because it cares about creatures, and your blue decks might be pretty spell heavy. So this might be a little bit tricky to actually protect in the sense of like getting the loyalty up by casting a creature each turn. But yeah, very good card. I think this is I would give Kaido a B+.
Yeah, I like B+ for Kaido.
Yeah, sounds good. Next up is Sphinx of Forgotten Lore. 2 blue for a 3/3 Sphinx at Mythic. It has Slash, it has Flying, and it says whenever this creature attacks, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to that card's mana cost.
So way worse than the other Sphinx we just saw. I'm just assuming it was a Sphinx. I'm not even sure.
No, yeah, for sure. The 6 mana Sphinx I think is better than this one.
Yeah. This thing's still playable. It's just not that good.
Yeah, it sounds like you're actually a little bit less excited than I am about it. Like, what did you want to, like, what grade area are you thinking for it?
Well, yeah, it's better than playable. Like the flashback, their ability is pretty good. I was gonna give it a B-.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it sounds right then. I mean, you're down on it compared to the other Sphinx we looked at, which I also agree with. I was just gonna give it the same grade, B- for the Sphinx.
Yeah, they've done this a bunch of times where like there's a rare and a mythic and a color that you kind of think they should be swapped, but it's fine.
Yeah, it's totally. Omniscience up next. Another quick one. 7 blue for an enchantment at Mythic that says you can cast spells from your hand without paying their mana costs. That's just an F. No thank you.
Yep.
We've got black cards up next now. So back to rares. Zool Ashur Lichlord. This is 1 black for a 2/2 legendary creature at rare. Ward, pay 2 life, and you can tap it to cast target zombie creature card from your graveyard this turn, which there is a handful of zombies.
Yeah, all the tribes like cats, angels, zombies, elves, they're all somewhat supported.
Yeah.
Did you play this with 0 zombies in your deck?
Just like a 2 mana 2/2 with Ward 2?
It's kind of more than that because it's kind of like a lightning rod too, right?
Yeah, they might be incentivized to kill it. Although if you like just don't have a zombie in your graveyard, I don't think they're going to be that like. I think most players are just going to wait until wait and see if this becomes a problem.
But that still forces them to hold on to a removal spell.
Yeah, that is fair. Yeah,
there is some tension with this. Even like if your opponent doesn't know you have 0 zombies, there's some upside.
So let's just assume you've got like 4 or 5, and you have the opportunity to cast one throughout the course of the game. Yeah, pretty good card. Not a just slam dunk bomb or anything, but I would give this with 4 zombies in my deck like I think a C plus.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and then like a D plus if you have none.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Next up is Tiny Bones. Tiny Bones back once again. Bauble Burglar. This is epithet this time. This is 1 and a black for a 1/3 legendary creature skeleton rogue at rare. Whenever an opponent discards a card, exile it from their graveyard with a stash counter on it. During your turn, you can play that card. During your turn, you may play cards you don't own with stash counters on them from exile. Spend any mana to cast those cards. Also has the ability, 3 in the black, tap Tiny Bones. Each opponent discards a card. Activate only as a sorcery.
Would have been much better and limited from 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. 4 mana make them discard a card at sorcery speed is kind of rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a playable 2-drop. Like, it's a 1/3 that has a relevant ability, but it's nothing exciting. I think I would give Tiny Bones a C.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Maybe C plus. Like, being able to actually like play. Let's see, can you play lands off this thing? You may play cards. Yeah, you can play lands.
Not cast, it's play.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'll give it a C plus. I think in some slower matchups, this card's gonna be pretty good.
Okay.
Yep. Abyssal Harvester up next. 1 black for a 3/2 at rare. You can tap it and exile a creature card from a graveyard that was put there this turn. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a nightmare in addition to its other types. Then you exile all nightmare tokens you control. So, yeah, basically you get to reanimate something, quote unquote reanimate it, make a token of it, one thing at a time.
Yeah, so you want to use this with removal spells ideally, but there's no way you can do that the turn. Like, it's not like some of the other cards you said where you can just wait till turn 4 and then cast it and remove something and instantly get your value. You need to untap with this. It's pretty small. I think this card is going to do worse than it looks.
Yeah, it's got a lot of just small awkward things. Like, it's a 3 mana double black card. It has the problem of being like, well, if you want this to, if you want to nab something with this, as in your opponent has a removal spell in hand and they don't want to be like, well, I just killed that thing and they get to bring it back. You have to not attack with this, so that's a little bit of a downside. If the turn that you cast your removal spell, if you've got the removal spell, like again, same thing, you can't attack with this, which is like a minor downside, but it all adds up. So I think this card is much better. You think this card's going to do a lot more than it's going to. I think this ends up being like, honestly, like a D plus maybe.
Yeah, okay. You gotta live the dream, Alex. I gotta give you some goals for the format, even though it's only a couple weeks that we're gonna be playing.
All right, yeah, let's hear it.
So you loot away your Progenitus. And then with the trigger on the stack, you get a Progenitus.
Isn't Progenitus a replacement effect though? I think it's is it a trigger?
I thought it was a trigger.
Oh, okay. Well, if it's a trigger, you're right. That's cool. But yeah, there's a chance it doesn't actually work. It works with mill too. Yeah, it says if a creature is put there, from anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll revise my grade to a C minus, I think, but I don't think this card's great.
That's where I was leaning as well.
Yeah. Sounds good. Okay, next up we've got an old classic again, Phyrexian Arena. 1 black for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card, you lose 1 life. This card was in Phyrexia All-Be-One. Was very, very bad there, but that was an extremely aggressive set.
Yeah.
I probably like it a little bit more here, but not by a ton.
Yeah, we saw, obviously, Unholy Annex is way better than this.
Yeah,
but just casting the side where you draw a card and lose 2, it didn't feel that bad. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It didn't.
So I agree with you. I think there's some optimism for this card being at least playable, although it's not a high pick compared to what it used to be.
No, for sure. I think Phyrexian Arena ended up being like not exactly an F, but pretty close. We had needed a very specific deck for it to be good in Phyrexia. I think here I'm gonna bump it up to like a D plus.
Yeah, I like D plus. Yeah, then there is like all the lands gain you life. There's a lot of ways to spot the life gain. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely black white is a home that I'd be happy playing this card in if you just have a decent amount of life gain. 9 lives familiar up next. 1 black for a 1/1. So many double pip 3-drops in this set, by the way. Like they really, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said they probably intentionally, with Llanowar Elves being the set, made that to be the case. So this is a 3-mana 1/1 cat at rare. It enters with 8 revival counters on it if you cast it. When this creature dies, if it had a revival counter on it, return to the battlefield with 1 fewer revival counters on it at the beginning of the next end step. So, cute little story, of course. Infinite sack fodder. Well, not infinite. Nine times you can sack it or trump block with it. I don't think it's great, though.
No, it's just a depowered Mortis Strider, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Mortis Strider you get to recast, right? This one just comes back.
Oh, was it? Okay, maybe I'm
I think so. I think that just came back to your hand. Maybe I'm mistaken.
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah. Fact check me. But yeah, I think if you're an extremely sacrifice heavy deck, I could see playing this card as like a lowish tier playable, like a D+. But otherwise, I don't think you want to play it.
You're right. Mortis Strider was the hand.
There we go.
Card being terrible. So this thing is better. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I was like, oh, maybe this card's kind of good, and then I was like, oh no, it's just Mortis Strider, and then I went way down on it. But the fact that it's not Mortis Strider actually makes me a little bit more optimistic on this again now.
We have reached the better than Mortis Strider conclusion for 9 lives familiar. Better than this card from 15 years ago that almost nobody knows. Would you disagree with the D+ then?
Maybe, honestly.
Okay.
Not much higher.
Yeah.
Like Black is still really annoying, and I think it needs like a synergy grade because you need to be making use of the body more than just like chump blocking with it.
Yes, I agree.
So I'd give it like a synergy C, maybe.
Okay, yeah, like the D+ I gave it was kind of considering synergy. Like, if you have a sacrifice deck, but maybe that's being a little too harsh. I don't know. I almost just think this just like doesn't. Like I imagine like all the other cards that are good for sacrificing might just be better.
Yeah. The things that spot you 1/1 tokens, you can usually like make use of the 1/1. So it's like one turn it chumps, the next turn it like double or triple blocks, the next turn you sacrifice it. I'm gonna stick with my synergy.
Okay. Yeah, I'll stick with my D+. Sounds good though. We've got Blasphemous Edict up next. 3 black for a sorcery at rare. You can pay black rather than pay the spell's mana cost if there are 13 or more creatures on the battlefield. And it says each player sacrifices 13 creatures of their choice. Which I think that's actually new wording, of their choice. I feel like that's maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that's a new thing for Foundations.
Yeah, I think you might be right about that. Maybe it's just to clarify that like the person sacrificing is that player.
Yeah, you can't sacrifice your opponent's creatures.
So we gave Day of Judgment or was it Wrath of God or Day of Judgment? I don't remember.
Yeah, Day of Judgment.
Day of Judgment. Yeah, Day of Judgment we gave a B. I think costing 1 more mana is a real knock against this.
I agree.
I'm gonna give it C+.
Yeah, I would say that too. I think you're not gonna like the times that you get to play this for 1 are gonna be fairly rare, and at that point, like when the board's fairly stalled, like the mana discount you get is not going to matter all that much. So I think you're mostly just looking at this as a 4 mana wipe the board. Oh, sorry, 5 mana wipe the board.
Yeah, I'm not even reading that. Like 13 creatures is huge.
Yeah, that's a lot. Next up is High Society Hunter. 3 black for a 5/3 vampire at rare. It's got flying. Whenever this creature attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And whenever another non-token creature dies, draw a card. That's just either player, not once per turn. Straight up.
Yeah, that's a terrifying line of text.
Yeah, that does count as immediate impact in my books.
Right, you can just pre-combat this and attack with everything.
Yeah, and kills them pretty quickly too, right? Even if you don't choose to sacrifice something, just like 5/5/5. I mean, often it's going to be like 6/7 kill you.
Yeah, I'm somewhere between A and A- for this. You wanna lean me one way or another?
Yeah, I was gonna give it an A-. I think as much as it has immediate impact, it's not a true enter the battlefield effect or anything. So yeah, A- for High Society Hunter for me.
I'll stick with an A.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Here's another F. They keep reprinting this card. I guess it's a commander thing, but Painful Quandary. 3 black for an enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, that player loses 5 life unless they discard a card. Gonna give a quick F, but I'll also say this is a card I saw way more often on the battlefield during Phyrexia, I think it was, that I would have expected. I think this card reads like it does a lot, but it just doesn't.
Yeah.
Next up is Runescarred Demon. 5 black for a 6/6 flyer at rare. When it enters, you Demonic Tutor. Search your library for a card, put it into your hand.
Yeah, nice top end. Powerful card.
For sure. A lot of the time you're going to be, you cast this card and you might have already drawn your best card, but, getting like the second best, third best card in your deck is still pretty good.
Get your Zombify to do it all again.
Oh, sure. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's a solid one. I don't think, like you say, good top end, not an amazing card or anything. I would give Runescarred Demon a C+.
C+? Yeah, it's going between B-, but C+ is probably right.
Yeah. Okay, Mythic here. Bloodthirsty Conqueror. Part of a combo, like you mentioned yesterday. So this is 3 black for a 5/5 Vampire Knight and Mythic. It's got flying, it's got Death Touch, and whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. So this is a combo card with the Marauding Blight Priest, I think it's called. The 3-mana 3/2 that whenever you gain life, your opponent loses a life. So, one of these goes off and just keeps on ping-ponging back and forth, and your opponent just dies. But good card on its own, too.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be hard to pick up those combo pieces, because it's a common that no deck really wants that much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it effectively says your unblocked creatures have lifelink. That's kind of another way you can parse that line of text there. With a few, other things, if you're like a red-black deck or something with burn.
It's still not like that good though, right?
5/5 flying Death Touch, sort of lifelink on attacks, sort of. Yeah, it's good. Like it's not. Yeah, I guess not in the A range. Probably is the way I would frame it right now. Like I think I'd give this a B.
Okay, I was gonna go B-.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna stick with.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. Okay, next up we've got a real nice Planeswalker. Liliana Dreadhorde General. 4 black for a 6 loyalty Planeswalker. Static line of text. Whenever a creature you control dies, draw a card. +1. Make a 2/2 black zombie creature token. -4. Each player sacrifices 2 creatures. -9. Each opponent chooses a permanent they control of each permanent type and sacrifices the rest.
This card's ridiculous.
Yep. Great when you're ahead, great when you're behind, great at all spots. I mean, it costs 6, which is a bit of a knock, but I would give Liliana an A+.
Yep, I agree.
Great card. Next up, we've got Rise of the Dark Realms. 7 black for a sorcery at Mythic. Put all cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. Big old 9 mana sorcery. We in the market for this in any deck?
No, I think this is a pipe dream.
Yeah.
I'm just going to give this an F.
Yep, I think so too. Okay, moving on to red now with Kellen Planar Trailblazer. Single red mana for a 2/1 legendary creature at rare. One of these kind of, what are they called? Figure of Destiny style cards, or Frodo for the most recent ones. It starts as a 1 mana card and has level up abilities. So the first level up ability is 1 in a red. If Kellen is a scout, it becomes a human fairy detective with the ability when Kellen deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. And then it has the 3 mana ability, 2 in a red. If Kellen is a detective, it becomes a 3/2 human fairy rogue and gains double strike.
Yeah, it's weird that like the first ability, it doesn't provide any stats.
Right.
If you pump mana into it, you probably can't use the card.
Yeah, I think probably the idea with this is like a lot of other cards that are like this with these level ups are like you would just do it almost as soon as you could, just like play this on 1, level up. I think they want you to be like, okay, play this on 1, play some other stuff first, and then later you can level this up and make it a relevant card again.
Yeah, because 6 mana eventually, but it's in installments for the 3/2 double strike that's going to draw you 2 cards when it connects. So that's still pretty good.
Yeah, still pretty good. Some real nice upside on your Savannah Lion. So I think I'd give Kellen a B-.
Yeah, I like B- for Kellen.
Yeah, sweet. Next up is Seer Slicer Goblin. Scary card. 1 red for a 2/1 Goblin Warrior at rare. It has Raid. At the beginning of your end step, if you attack this turn, you make a 1/1 red Goblin creature token.
Yeah, this is. I mean, you can just throw your 1/1s in. Like if you're sacrificing them, you can just
Yeah.
raid with the 1/1 and trigger itself. It's like not that far off of just being like a 2-mana Aomer.
Yeah, sure. Like the dream, I think, is going. I mean, if you can play a 1 in this equation, great. But let's say you just play this, then you play some other 2. Play Burst Lightning Attack. Play this on your second main phase. Make a token, then just start snowballing from there. Yeah, this card looks pretty strong to me.
I think I'm gonna go to B+ for this.
I am also gonna go to B+. Seems really strong. Next up is Flamewake Phoenix. So this is 1 red for a 2/2 Phoenix at rare. Has flying and it has haste, and it says this creature attacks each combat if able. It also says at the beginning of your combat on your turn, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you can pay red, and if you do, you return the Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Yeah, it's an annoying card to deal with.
Yeah. One thing to note too is that it can't block for most of its existence, but the first turn it comes down, if you need to block, you can play it on your main phase, of course. Or sorry, main phase 2. Yeah.
Combat main phase, yeah.
Yeah, this card is annoying is about right. I think that's a good descriptor.
There's not that much that stonewalls this. Like white has a couple of angels. Blue doesn't really have like a lot of common flyers that I think people will play, and then green has like 1 reach creature that I can think of.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this will be able to get in pretty reliably.
Yeah, no, so do I. I think this is a solid Phoenix. There's definitely some Phoenixes we've seen that have been a little more busted than this, but it's a good one. I wouldn't give it like a super high grade, probably like a B-.
I wrote B for myself,
Yeah.
so pretty similar.
Yeah, that's fair. Electro Duplicate up next. 2 red for a sorcery at rare. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except it has haste, and at the beginning of each end step, sacrifice this token. Flashback, 2 red.
I don't think you're getting enough out of this
No.
for the main.
No,
This is enough.
yeah, I think this is just a commander card. Next up is Slag Storm. 1 red for a sorcery. Choose 1. Either it deals 3 damage to each player or 3 damage to each creature.
Yeah, so you're gonna play this probably in blue-red for the creature side most often, and it'll be pretty good there. Like we just talked about how wraths were good. 5 mana we didn't want to pay, 4 mana we did. 3 mana for a wrath is pretty good, and it kills a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you were mentioning yesterday that things are fairly small in this set, so I think 3 damage is going to be a field wipe in a lot of cases. Of course, maybe not against the green deck, but against I think every other color, it's going to kill most of their stuff.
So I don't know if it's like a build around or a synergy grade needed for this, because like it's not the 3 damage to a player does not make it an aggressive card.
No.
But maybe I give it like a build around B, similar to Day of Judgment.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the build around grade is appropriate because most red decks aren't going to want it. So
Yeah.
we've got Krenko Mob Boss up next. This is 2 red for a 3/3 legendary creature at rare. So Goblin Warrior. When you can tap it to create X 1/1 red goblin creature tokens, where X is the number of goblins you control. Super scary card. This, if you haven't played against Krenko before, it gets out of hand so quickly.
Yeah, you don't need other goblins, but there are a few sprinkled in, just like with the other creature types. So making like 1 and then 2 and then 4, you'd like that to be sped up by a turn, but even if you don't, like it's so hard to get this under control.
Yeah, totally. And that said, no ETB, no protection, but I think that this card, like, some cards with no ETB, no protection that are 4+ mana, you untap with them, and it's like, okay, maybe you can do some good stuff if this untaps. When you untap with Krenko, things get really wild, even if Krenko's your only one. And if Krenko's your only one, it takes a while to get going, but even with 1 more goblin, it speeds up the process really quickly.
I was gonna give Krenko a B.
Yep, that sounds right to me. Yep,
Okay.
I like B for Krenko. Atali, Primal Storm, is 4 red for a 6/6 legendary creature at rare. When it attacks, you exile the top card of each player's library. You may cast any number of spells from among those cards without paying their mana cost. So I think quite a bit worse than the newer Tally, the 7 mana one that does this on Enter the Battlefield, always hits a spell. This is a 6/6 big dummy that, is still pretty solid, but I think don't confuse this with other Tally. It's not quite as good.
Yeah, we've seen cards like this before where they look really good, but they have they're just no protection ETB with just stats.
Mm-hmm.
And those have often underperformed. We usually grade those cards too high. So I'm going to come in somewhat low for a Tally.
Yep, me too.
I was going to give it a B-.
Yep, I was going to say even C+, honestly. I think that could be a little bit low, could be shooting a little bit low, but I think this is probably going to be an overrated card if I were to guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next up is another gigantic dummy, Drakuseth Maw of Flame. 4 red for a 7/7 dragon at rare. It's got flying, and when it attacks, it deals 4 damage to any target and 3 damage to each two up of. Sorry, let me say this again. It deals 4 damage to any target and 3 damage to each of up to 2 other targets. So, for your opponents, can wipe their board. It's another card that is very, very good if you untap with it, but is also just a very expensive big dummy with no protection, no ETB.
Right. It's pretty similar, except the extra red mana pip I think makes it significantly worse.
Yeah. This is a card that I do remember losing a lot to, and when this was in, I think, Core 2020. That's was probably propped up. I mean, there's ramp in this set too. I always remember dying to this against a red-green deck. So I think that's probably part of it. If you want to cast this card, put it in a red-green deck. Not going to be great in your aggro decks, but it's a good top-end card.
I am still going to come in pretty low. I'm going to give it a C-.
Yeah, I was going to give it pretty much the same grade as the Tally, C+. But okay. Yeah, again, I think another card that might be a little bit overrated. All right, quick F here. Brass's Bounty, 6 and a red for a sorcery at rare. For each land you control, create a treasure token. Nah, F. We've got Twin Flame Tyrant up next. 3 red for a 3/5 dragon at Mythic. It's got flying, and if a source you control would deal damage to an opponent or permanent an opponent controls, it deals double that damage instead.
I didn't even count this when I was talking about all the mass bump effects, but this is basically just another override.
Yeah, true. It just comes down and makes all your things really big.
I think this thing's... I like this one.
Yeah, I do too. It's quite large, has immediate impact. Oh, another card that is actually going to be affected by the damage, the rules change. Because these damage replacement effects... Now, because you can split up damage on double blocks as the attacker any way you want, you can now go, say your creature had 2 power. If your opponent double blocks with 2 2/2s, you can go 1 damage to one of them, 1 damage to another, kill both of them. Which, that exact situation might not come up that often, but being able to spread out the damage makes these kind of effects a little bit better.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So you still won't be able to have your cake and eat it too if they have 3/3 and a 1/1 and you're dealing 2 damage. But yeah, very, very good point to mention. And I do think that will come up with this.
Yeah, no, me too. I think I would give Twin Flame Tyrant a B+.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
I like B+.
Great. Rite of the Dragon Caller is up next. This one's interesting. I'm curious what your take on this one. 4 red for an enchantment at Mythic. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 5/5 red dragon token with flying.
So this is the card I was alluding to when we talked about Thousand Year Storm.
Yep.
I think this is better.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you untap and cast your first spell, you're pretty much caught up on right away, and then the second one wins you the game, and it doesn't have to be the same turn. I think this is going to get a build-around grade for me.
Yeah, for sure.
It'll almost certainly be just blue-red.
Mm-hmm.
And in those decks, I think it's a C+.
Yeah, I think that's about right. Good top-end card, but has some setup, no immediate impact, can take over, but need some time. Yeah, C+ seems good to me.
Okay.
Sweet. Chandra Flameshaper is a 7 mana red planeswalker. 5 red, 6 loyalty. +2, add red. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. You choose one. You can play that card this turn. +1, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except it gains haste and you sacrifice it on your end step. -4, Chandra deals 8 damage, divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers.
When I first read this card, I read the first two abilities, and I was like, well, you can't really like use the +2 that effectively the turn you cast it, and then
Yeah.
the +1's like not that great. So I was like, this card maybe is not that good, and then I realized that the ultimate's just -4.
Yep. It just comes down, and I think that's going to happen most of the time, where you cast this for 7, you wipe your opponent's board, and just go from there.
Yeah, that thing's ridiculous.
Yeah, card's pretty darn strong. Another, like, it's kind of funny. Red's got a lot of good things to ramp into. Like, a lot of
Yeah,
Red's rares are actually pretty expensive, funny enough.
that's true, and with the lack of good red 2 drops, that does kind of all make some kind of gelling sense. So
Yeah.
I don't know what the red decks are going to look like in this format. It's going to be kind of tough to figure that out because red green maybe suffers as a result, and red white maybe end up in blue red and red black more often, Grixis type things.
Yeah, I do want to point out that the +2, it, like, by the time you cast the 7-mana card, like, that has real chance of decking you. Like, you can only +2 so many times to exile 3 cards.
Yeah, you could probably do that 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, just something to call out there. But yeah, I think she's good. Like, a lot of the red cards we've been saying, like, not an aggro card, but in a mid-ranger controlling deck, yeah, she's great.
I still want to give Chandra an A-, I think.
Yep, yep. I would also give, still as in, like, it's a 7-mana card, but still good enough to give an A-.
Yeah, like you're talking down some of the abilities, but
Yeah,
just like -4 that then they have to like how do they deal with this after you -4 it? They're not gonna have a board left.
they burst lightning it.
That's I think you're still fine with
Oh
that.
yeah, no, for sure. You're very happy with that exchange. In any case, yeah, I think I'll join you. A- for Chandra.
Okay.
And green, home stretch here. Scavenging Ooze, our first green rare. 1 in a green for a 2/2 rare. Has the ability green. Exile target card from a graveyard, and if a creature card, if that was a creature card, you put a +1/+1 counter on Scavenging Ooze, and you gain 1 life.
Yeah, more incidental hate for blue black. This card's gonna be really annoying and really good, I think.
Yep. Yeah, Scavengers are just always really, really solid. Like, never super busted, but always a rock solid 2-drop. I would give Scavenging Ooze a B.
I'm going B
B plus? Yeah, yeah. No, it's another one that, as soon as it came out of my mouth, I was like, yeah, I probably should bump it up a little bit. B plus for Scavenging Ooze for me as well.
Okay.
Loot. Exuberant Explorer. 2 and a green for a 1/4 legendary creature at rare. You can play an additional land on each of your turns, and you can also pay 4 green and tap Loot. Reveal the top 6 cards of your library. You can reveal a creature card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control from among them. Put that on the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order.
So this just like if you have a bunch of lands in hand, you could just activate it the turn after you cast it.
Yep. Yeah, totally. Just, you have to have a lot of lands in hand, but it's a possibility.
If your opening hand is Llanowar Elf, Loot, and 5 forests, you can activate it on turn 3.
That is pretty funny, yeah. And maybe miss.
Well, no, you've drawn all your forests. You're gonna hit.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Now.
It's guaranteed. So these kind of effects, like 3-mana defensive-ish body, you can play another land each turn. Those generally aren't great. We don't care too much about that. But stapling a mana sink on, that makes it significantly better.
Yeah, I kind of like Loot. I know there's been a lot of dislike for Loot on. I don't understand the dislike for Loot, but seems to be a maligned character. But I'm pretty happy to play this. I think.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, what do you want to give it?
I think I'm gonna give it a C plus, somewhere between that and B minus. I think.
Yeah, I think C plus sounds right to me.
Okay.
Yeah, neat little card. Spinner of Souls up next. 2 and a green for a 4/3 reach. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order.
This is gonna be really annoying.
Yeah, this is a nice one.
And it's got that 3 toughness, which
Mm-hmm.
is like exactly what you want on this type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is like going between A minus and B plus. I think probably more of a B plus.
I'm with you on that's the range, and I think I'll give it the benefit of the doubt and give it the A minus.
Yeah, yeah, I like that too.
Really good card.
Ooh, here's another classic, Genesis Wave. X green, green, green for a rare sorcery. Reveal the top X cards of your library. You may put any number of permanent cards with mana value X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Then put all cards revealed this way that weren't put on the battlefield into your graveyard.
You need a lot of mana for this to be worth it.
Yeah, but I think it's a pretty reasonable build around. Like, just ramp, 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 ramp.
There is Elvish Archdruid that we're about to see,
Mm-hmm.
which could kind of go nuts.
Yep.
So you need to cast this. We saw Villainous Wealth be like somewhat underwhelming in whatever format that was recently in. I think this card's still pretty bad.
Yeah, maybe I'm dreaming too hard here with it. And Villainous Wealth was just like cast any spells. This is permanence. I mean that obviously you hit lands, but you don't care that much about lands at that point.
Yeah, like if you want to give this a build around grade, I would go up to like build around D plus.
Yeah.
But I'm not going any higher than that.
Yeah. I think probably it's pretty safe to give it like a responsible F.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that makes more sense.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, next one we've got Sylvan Scavenging. 1 green green for an enchantment at rare. At the beginning of your end step, choose one. Either put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, or create a 3/3 green raccoon creature token. Only if you control a creature power 4 or greater, though, can you choose that second mode.
I like that this is end step instead of combat. It makes it a little less egregious to play against.
Yeah,
but I still think this card's gonna be pretty good.
Yeah, and me too. Like, and the nice thing, of course, is that the first ability feeds the second ability eventually.
Yeah, you just need a creature,
Yeah.
and these like endless array of +1/+1 counters. These cards are always great and limited.
Yeah, this card seems very good. I do think, like you said, not triggering on combat is a slight knock on it, but not by a ton. I would give Sylvan Scavenging a B plus.
Okay, I was gonna go up to A minus,
A minus
for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Same ballpark. We've got Mossborn Hydra up next. 2 and a green for a 0/0 trample at rare. It enters with a +1/+1 counter on it, just a single one. And when you landfall, double the number of counters on it.
This is just too slow, isn't it?
So you play it on 3, play a land, 2/2. Yeah, you would basically want Evolving Wilds or ramp spells. Like, if you play this on 4 Evolving Wilds, it's a 4/4.
Like the dream scenario of having a 4/4 on turn 4 is not making me excited.
No, me neither. I mean that's not the dream scenario though, right? Like that's like a decent rate, and then it gets gigantic next turn.
Yeah, I'm still very low on this.
Very low, very low. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't gonna be super high, but I was gonna give it like a C minus maybe.
Okay, I was gonna go down to somewhere in the D range,
Yeah.
so I'll give it a D plus. But yeah, I think this card's just like you don't really want to cast it on turn 3, but you kind of have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not good on turn. Like it's funny. It's you want it on turn 3, but it's not good on turn 3. Like, yeah. Yeah, tough to say. I don't know. I think I probably just like it a little more than you do, but we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll stick with my C minus. Elvish Archdruid, like you alluded to a minute ago, 1 green green for a 2/2. Other elves get +1/+1, and you tap it to add green for each elf you control.
Yeah, nice curve of Llanowar Elf into this, and then you're untapping with 6 mana on turn 3. Like, I think it's gonna go pretty nuts pretty quickly.
Yeah, generally, we've seen this card in a few core sets, and usually there's like a decent amount of elf support, and it always ends up being just, a solid card. Nothing too exciting. It is a bit of a build around. I mean, definitely a build around. You can't just shove this in any deck. You're not happy with 3 mana, 2/2 tap for green.
Right.
So yeah, it's like a synergy B.
I'd go a little lower than that, I think.
Synergy B minus,
I'll go
maybe?
synergy. Yeah, synergy B minus.
Yeah, sounds good. Preposterous Proportions is up next. 5 GG for a sorcery at rare. Creatures you control get +10/+10 and gain vigilance until end of turn. Another mass pump spell.
Yeah, vigilance is such a weird ability on this because, like, what board are they gonna have left that you'll need to block?
Yeah, the flavor's also a little bit weird. It's like, my creatures are gigantic and now slightly more aware of combat situations, and so they won't tap. Like, what's going on there?
Yeah, like I think this is just worse than Overrun.
Yeah,
Isn't
no,
it?
I think so for sure. Yeah.
Is it playable?
I don't think it's great. Like, I think this is like a D.
Yeah, okay. A D is at least not an F, but
Yeah.
I'll join you there.
Okay. Next up, we've got Galta, Primal Hunger, 10 GG, 12 mana for a 12/12 at rare. It's got Trample, and it costs X less to cast, where X is the total power of creatures you control. I've played with this card before, and it's great. It costs 2 mana on turn 5, 6 a lot of the time, and it's just a 12/12 and is massive.
So what do you want to give it? I don't remember playing with this card.
Yeah,
all,
this
so.
is OG Ixalan. I would give Galta a B+.
A B plus.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll touch you on that then.
Yeah, card's good. Next up is a card's not so good. Doubling Season. 4 and a green for an enchantment at Mythic. If an effect would create one or more tokens, you make double those tokens instead. If an effect would put one or more counters on a permanent you control, you put double those counters instead.
It's just an F.
Yeah, no, too much setup. And we got Vivian Reed as our green planeswalker. 3 GG for a 5 loyalty planeswalker. +1, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or a land from among them, put it into your hand. The rest on the bottom of any order. -3, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. -8, you get an emblem with creatures you control have +2/+2, vigilance, trample, and indestructible. Another sort of overrun mass pump spell, if you want to squint a little bit.
True.
Yeah.
That's true.
But yeah, the Vivian's a great planeswalker. Like, lots of loyalty, plus to start drawing cards, down tick, sometimes kill something. Often what happens is you have just like a reasonable board of creatures. You play Vivian, you start upticking, and your opponent is just like, that's just going to draw them infinite cards, and I can't really kill it. Is generally what happens.
Does this make it into the A range? Is it an A minus?
Yeah, I think so. I would give a Vivian an A minus.
Okay.
Yep. Quilled Great Worm up next. 4 GG for a 7/7 Mythic Worm. It's got Trample, and it says whenever a creature you control deals combat damage during your turn, put that many +1/+1 counters on it. A little reminder text here: it must survive combat, or must survive to get those counters. It also says you can cast this card from your graveyard by removing 6 counters from among creatures you control, in addition to paying its other costs.
Yes, you're gonna really want combat tricks with this. Because yeah, it's a trigger, so it's not like the lifelink thing that we saw earlier, where it's just gonna survive.
But yeah,
Card's huge though.
Yeah, card's very, very big. Seems a lot of the rares have this this play pattern of, expensive-ish thing that maybe doesn't have an enter the battlefield effect, but does immediately affect combat. Something like this, or we've just seen a few cards kind of like that, which is cool.
Yeah.
Cool little kind of design knob that they are always kind of adjusting and turning. What do they want from their expensive cards? And I think Quilled Great Worm's a good one. I think it's a pretty solid one.
Do you think that second line of text is gonna come up at all?
Probably not that often, because you're probably just gonna kill them before you're casting it from the graveyard. I mean, you like, how often do I want to take 6/6 worth of stats off my board to play a 7/7? Sometimes, but a lot of times you're just gonna be like, okay, I'm just gonna keep bashing with my 8/8 or whatever.
It just says 6 counters, so this does work with that 1/3 blue rare that we saw that gets whatever counters to make.
Oh yeah, Drake Catcher. Yeah, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would give Cold Worm a pretty high grade. I think an A minus.
Yeah, I like A minus for Quilled Great Worm.
Sounds good. Okay, and that's gonna bring us on to the special guests. So just like we have every set, we've got 10 cards that are gonna appear at higher than Mythic, basically. You're not going to see these cards very often. I think through my run of Duskmourn, I probably in packs saw like 7, 8 special guests over the course of my drafts, and I drafted 100 plus times. So good to know about. These cards are going to come up once in a while, but I don't expect to see them all that often. One thing I will call it too, actually, is they've actually changed the way these cards are redeemed on Arena. So if you're somebody who redeems cards with wild cards, these used to be all Mythic, and they are printed as Mythic, but now you get to redeem them for whatever their original rarity was. So Condemn here as our first one. I believe you're going to be able to redeem as an uncommon. Thought I'd just call that out. Okay, so...
Yeah, I'm glad you knew what I was going to.
Yeah, for sure. So Condemn, single white mana for an instant. Put a target attacking creature on the bottom of its owner's library. Its controller gains life equal to its toughness.
Yeah, Condemn's really good.
Yeah.
It's a slower card, but like if you're a control deck, this is excellent.
Yeah, sort of Swords to Plowshare-esque. Again, 4 slower decks for sure, but really, really strong there. I would give Condemn a B.
Yeah, I like B for Condemn.
Great. We've got Sphinx's Tutelage up next. 3 mana, 2 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever you draw a card, target opponent mills 2 cards. If 2 null-9 cards share a color that were milled this way, you repeat the process. And it also has the ability 5 and a blue, draw a card, then discard a card. You played with this one before?
No, I was gonna say you have though, right?
Yeah, I have. It's pretty scary. It does mill you out really quickly if you have the kind of deck for this. And having just that mana sink that helps to get you there is a really, really big deal. So I think this is going to be a legit card. Like I would be happy to play this in like a blue control deck and have this as a win condition.
Okay, I'll let you grade it on this one. Then I'm not going to challenge you.
Yeah, totally. I think I'd give Sphinx's Tutelage a B. Like a build around synergy B in a control deck. We've got Temporal Manipulation up next. 3 blue for a sorcery. Take an extra turn after this one. I was just talking about this card when comparing it to Time Stop.
Yeah, but this is much better. I'm much happier to play this. Time Warp, I think I would give like
B-?
between C+ and B-.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, B- for Temporal Manipulation. Grim Tutor, 1 black for a sorcery. Search your library for a card. Put that card into your hand, and then you'll lose 3 life. Nah, just too expensive and clunky for a tutor. No, thank you.
Yeah, F.
Goblin Bushwhacker, 1 mana for a 1/1. It says when this creature enters, if it was kicked, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn, and the kicker cost is red. So you're almost never playing this just straight up. You're going to be kicking it like as a red card, but it's a pretty good red card.
Yeah, another overrun. We just got
It's just like you just need to always expect your opponent's going to have something that pumps their team in this set. Sorry.
Similar to like timely reinforcements in a sense, right? It spots you like a body and a pump for everything.
Yep. Yeah, it's just mono red. I think I'd give Goblin Bushwhacker like a C+.
Yep, I like that.
Yeah, that's good. Embercleave. Embercleave is in this set. So you got 4 red for a legendary artifact equipment. Has flash. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature you control. Whenever Embercleave enters, you attach it to a creature you control. The equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has double strike and trample, and the equip cost is 3 mana. One of the best equipment of all time. Embercleave is great. I'm just going to call it an A.
I wrote A+ for it. I thought you were going to as well.
Yeah, honestly, could just be that. I think that I think it's fair to give it an A+ too. I'll stick with my A though.
Okay.
We've got Bloom Tender up next. 1 and a green for a 1/1. Taps to add a color for each color amongst permanents you control. Add 1 mana of that color.
Not great.
Yeah, so
like this is not what you want to be doing. Sorry. For some reason, I've played with this card before. For some reason, I thought it was 3 mana for a second. So it's 2 mana. So never mind. It's actually totally fine.
Yeah, and it's an elf for what it's worth. I should call that out too. Yeah, it taps to add green, and then taps to add, if you play, like, the play patterns with this can be, like, played on 2, maybe you play a white 3-drop, then your Bloom Tender can cast a 2-drop, making 2 mana. Yeah, it's a pretty strong mana elf.
Yeah. I don't know what I was thinking of that was 3 mana, but this card is definitely fine for 2.
Yeah, you want to give it a C+?
Yeah, C+ is good.
Sounds good. We've got Paradise Druid, another elf, another mana protection creature. 1 and a green for a 2/1. It has hexproof as long as it's untapped, and you can tap it to add a mana of any color.
Another C plus.
Yeah, I think probably even better than Bloom Tender. That's I would probably give this one a B minus actually.
Sure.
But yeah, I think the hexproof when it comes down is pretty important. Fiend Artisan. This is Golgari Hybrid for a 1/1. It gets +1/+1 for each creature card in your graveyard. You can pay X in a Golgari Hybrid and tap it, and sacrifice another creature. Search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, put that onto the battlefield, and then shuffle. Activate that only as a sorcery.
Yeah, this one I don't know. It's going to come up infrequently enough that I don't think the grade we give it really matters, but I think it's looks decent to me on a reading. Have you played with the card before?
Yeah, this is from Ikoria. It was fine. It was a solid card. Like I think you want self-mill in your deck to make this grow pretty quickly. The sacrifice a creature might actually even be better in this set than it was there, because that set has a little bit of a sacrifice tokeny theme in like red black. But I think that this set actually probably supports that theme even better. So yeah, I think it's a solid card. I would give Fiend Artisan a C+.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, kind of funny. It's a nightmare. So watch it for that other black rare that exiles your nightmares when you tap it again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I think the last card for today, Chroma's Memorial. 7 mana artifact. Creatures you control have flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and protection from black and red. This is one that I actually haven't played in just retail limited. Have you at some point?
Not to my recollection. It might have been in a set I played, but I don't remember this.
Yeah. And sorry, chat says nightmare tokens only, so you don't actually exile Fiend Artisan. Good call.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, Chroma's Memorial, it is a good thing to do with your 7 mana. Like that's a lot of good keywords.
Protection from black and red is. The chances are at least one of those colors will be relevant, and protection is a pretty messed up ability.
Yeah, and often this thing just kills them the turn it comes down too, right? Just giving all your things flying and trample. It's still 7 mana, and requires you to have creatures, a good chunk of creatures to be actually, doing anything relevant.
The fact that there's so many overruns, kind of makes me lower on this.
Yeah, that's true. This is just another overrun.
We should.
Yeah, man, no, there's just infinite of these. Crazy. Yeah, I honestly think, just as we're, not to, before we grade this card, but I think that might just be a complaint of this set. There's just so many overruns. Games are just ending. It's oh, okay. Did they have it? They probably did this time. I think play draw might matter a lot in this set because of that. So, yeah, that might be a knock to look out for going into the set.
You basically have to keep your opponent's board under control at all times. Although it does mean, we saw, what was it, Aether Eyes or whatever, the bounce all attacking creatures. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's better than we gave it credit for.
Yeah, could be. Okay, well, to put our final grade on it, I'm going to give Chroma's Memorial a B-.
B-? I wrote down C- for myself.
Oh, yeah? Oh, okay. This is quite a big difference, yeah. I just think most of the time you're just going to kill them when you cast it, but... that's pretty good for your 7 mana.
I'll go up to a C, but we'll still keep great.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, that's it. We got through these cards pretty quickly. Any final thoughts? I think we mostly covered what the big picture, high-level stuff is going on in the set. But I don't know if you maybe had any emerging thoughts from what we talked about today.
Yeah, it's interesting. The set's gonna be around. I mean, there's a U.S. election night is today.
Tonight, yeah.
By the time the next president's term is over, this set will still be standard legal. So
that's so true. Wow, that's really funny. Yeah,
it's gonna be around for a long time. So you can tell that they've been a little bit more careful with printing, totally busted things. Limited, I think it'll be fun, but not super excited. But I said that for Bloomborough, and I ended up liking it a lot. So maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this is it's gonna be an interesting one. I think that there are definitely players that don't really like the kind of core set feeling sets, the more simple ones. There's some players that I know that really do. So it's kind of going to be based on what you like as a limited player. Some people like the more back to basic feel. Some people like the tons of interconnected mechanics like we had in Duskmourn and MH3. So yeah, it's going to be up to the player, I think. I think a lot of people are going to have kind of diverging opinions on this one.
Yeah, and for anyone who's looking for our grades ahead of Alex coming out with a tier list, they are posted on his Discord, so you can
Yep.
go check out the Foundations channel. It's pinned there if anyone wants to get access to these right away.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, Mark, I will say thank you. Thank you so much once again for joining us. Always a pleasure, always a treat. I always look forward to these. And yeah, any final words?
No, yeah, we'll see you. I guess we'll run it back in 2 months or whatever.
Yeah. Just a heads up, everybody. We're going to be doing this every 2 months, starting in 2015, because the new set cadence. So, yeah, hopefully they go easy on us, and there's not multiple sets back to back with double face cards and infinite words and bonus sheets. But we'll see. All right. Well, we'll see you next time, everybody. Thanks for watching and listening, and thanks for hanging out in chat, everybody. We'll hope you have a good night and a good pre-release if you're going to that.